You're listening to the Cantina Cast, your home for thought-provoking Star Wars talk. Join Albert and Jonesy in breaking down the latest news, trailers, movies, and of course, your favorite characters from a galaxy far, far away.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Cantina Cast. My name is Albert Padilla, and this is episode 420, the Obi-Wan Kenobi Part 5 breakdown/discussion. This is the penultimate episode of the series, and man, for an episode that was only like 35 minutes long, I say only, but we did get quite a bit of information, quite a bit of reveals. I think some stuff we were fully expecting, some things that we were not expecting. And more importantly, we're going back to Tatooine. So just had to start that off because speaking of Tatooine, Jonesy's with us tonight. Damn. Jonesy, how are you doing tonight?
He did give me a heads up that this was coming, though.
So for anybody that's not aware, we were going back and forth about whether or not we would go to Tatooine. I'd made the comment that the writer wouldn't put in, or next time, Owen, whatever it was, that line, right, and that Reva kind of uttered without that signaling that we would be coming back to Tatooine. And I was thinking, I guess it's not going to happen. I guess Jonesy wins this one. And then I pull it at the very end. I got that. I drained the 3 from about halfway, the halfway mark there. So
yeah, I mean, it was one of those questions about how would we do it
exactly, and it was
something so subtle with the way they did it with the device that makes a lot of sense. I didn't expect Bail to break radio silence.
Yeah, I mean, we'll talk about that too. Like some of this stuff I never would have thought that would be the reason. Like I'd come up with probably every reason but that, which is fine. But so anyways, it's
still a surprising thing, right?
Still surprising, yeah.
After all these years.
And thanks to everybody joining us tonight. Like I'm surprised we have so many people on the live stream. Quite a few people already. So thank you guys for joining. Hopefully you've watched the episode because we are going to break it down and reveal everything and talk about as much as we could. But I've only seen it. Well, I say only. I've seen it about 4 times. Taken copious notes now, but there are some things that I didn't get a chance to break down. So I'm going to lean on a website that went through and like deciphered all of the Orabesh already.
I've got all the history and all the names that we found. That's great.
Yeah, I did not get a chance to do some of that stuff. I kept looking at them and going to Wikipedia and going, holy crap, that's somebody. We'll have to mark that one. Oh, here's another one. We'll mark that one, but didn't get a chance to get all that done. But do we have any news, or do you want to just get right? I don't think we really do. I guess
just Shadow of the Sith embargo is up. So I think you were preparing it's probably more of an update about preparing a non-spoiler review for Shadow of the Sith by Adam Christopher that you were putting together.
Yep, and that'll be out Friday morning. You can expect that. And excited to talk about it. We talked about it in last night's episode a little bit. We kind of threw some spoilers out there, light spoilers, and we won't do that on this episode. I think we freaked out some people. I'm not going to name any names, Lauren. However, you don't need to worry. We won't do that tonight. So,
right.
But in Patreon news.
Oh, we got lots of great news. So a big thank you to Gary Smith, who signed up for our early access tier. So thank you, Gary. He was on the live stream the other day. So awesome to see you there. And then, of course, a special thanks to our Plus Little Extra members, Mike and Kathy. And then we now have Rob Gulmistad. I like just saying his last name. So Rob's got a cool last name. So, so Rob decided to join the Plus Little Extra tier. So thank you so much, Rob, for the extra shillings our way. We certainly appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, guys. Thank you so much for doing that. We're always very humbled that people are putting money this way or throwing money this way so that we can continue to do the show and pay the bills, which is what we're doing with all this. So thanks very much. We do certainly appreciate that.
And if you're curious what we're doing over on Patreon, it's cantinacast.com/Patreon. And of course, you can get all of the links and everything else, including swag and all the other good stuff at cantinacast.com, as well as our events that we're going to do. So you'll know what is coming up as soon as we do. Which is always the key. whenever we know it, we let y'all know it.
Sometimes you might know before we do.
I don't know how that's possible, but
yeah,
it's possible.
It's possible. All right. Well, let's get into talking about episode 420, or not 420. Well, episode 5. How about that? Part 5.
Yeah, part 5. Yeah. Cantina Cast episode 20.
Where
I
do
tell
you
you
want
what,
to start?
let's start with the writing. How about that? We haven't really spoken about the writers really in a lot of this has a bit of a shift. Andrew Stanton was involved in writing this one. Of course,
Mm-hmm.
Andrew Stanton is insanely well known if you are a fan of Pixar movies. He co-wrote A Bug's Life, all four Toy Story movies, Monsters Inc. He's directed Wall-E, Finding Nemo, Finding Dory. This guy is basically a Pixar legend and co-wrote this one, I believe, with Joey Harold, right? I believe it was both of them that got credits for it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so, but man, the writing in this one was really, really good, you know, and especially we had some really great moments between, you know, Obi-Wan and Reva finally. We finally get the backstory, you know, but
Yeah.
I just thought it was the writing's been good. I think it's been, at moments has been great, but I really, everything about this episode just worked for me.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, literally everything except maybe the de-aging technology was a little inconsistent, but I mean, everything else about this episode really did work for me.
Yeah.
And really enjoyed it. And I think the writing was really the foundation for this one.
I think so too. Like, I would agree that it was kind of cool to see him get credited for that. And I know that a lot of people were there was a lot of chatter going into this episode right before it aired about whether or not that was going to make a difference and that sort of thing. And I think clearly it does. Not that that's not taking anything away from the writing that's come before, you know, done by Harold himself. So
Absolutely not. Yeah.
yeah. But I think they've had a lot of great moments. They've had some pretty wonderful moments with the writing. I think there was some pretty good examples in this one where I thought they did an excellent job, more so than they have in the past. I was just completely blown away by a number of things. Really enjoyed the flashback. I'm so glad we got that. I think we all kind of knew that was, or at
It was
least
much
hoped.
more needed than I think we even realized we needed it to.
Yeah.
We knew it was going to be important, but to
Yep.
get both of the flashbacks that we got was pretty, that ended up being a really pivotal moment for this episode.
Yeah, enjoyed that. We got to see more of Darth Vader in live action, doing what he does best, things that he does in comics and other forms of media that we don't always get to see if you're not, if you're not following that stuff and all you've got is the movies, really, and some of the television. You probably didn't know some of the things that he can do, and so
Right.
it was really cool to see that translated into the live screen. And I think they did a really great job when we get to that with the editing and I'm not that. So I'll be honest. Like, I love Deborah Chow. I love everything Deborah Chow is doing with the direction of it. When I'm not I'm 95% there, but not fully on, is the shaky cam. Like, in moments, I think it works, right? And this is like Spielberg. And I want to get on the soapbox here. All the directors have, like, the best directors are able to kind of float between both, and they know when it's appropriate to use them. And there's just moments, and some, for me personally, there are some times when I feel like the shaky cam doesn't really work. Like, it'd be better if it was just on a steady cam, or even just on not even moving, right? A still cam. But when she went to the shaky cam during that fight, I thought it worked really well. Like normally, we'd watch a lightsaber fight and it's just kind of panning left to right, and we're watching and the focus is on that. But there was something immersive about using that kind of a camera technique when Vader was just toying with her, and adding into that those sound effects. Like
Right.
I can't even explain what they were. I don't know that we've even heard those before.
The Force sound effects?
Yeah, well, it was like a
big
boom.
woof.
Yeah, it kept happening over and over again. So it was just another dimension to Vader using the Force, or just Force users in general, that I hope that we kind of see carried out through more television later down the road. So
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
It's a really delicate one to use, a methodology with the shaky cam and the the handheld type of way of doing things, because it can be very, especially when you're up close, it can be very disorienting in some kind of ways too as a viewer. But I think she did. I think it worked for the most part. Worked really well in this episode, and sometimes it's nice for it to be more cinematic, like you were saying, on the trail basically, or on the tracks.
Yep.
But sometimes when you really want those chaotic personal moments, there's no other way you can really do it except just be up close and hold the camera yourself and find what you like to look at.
Yeah. There was something else too. We've talked about the music before in this series, and I think for the most part it's been effective. There have been some really good moments. I think we called out the Alderaan one. There was another moment too that we had. I'm drawing a blank now which one it was. There was somewhere that the music it stood out for me. But I think for this one, this is the first time it really kind of caught me when we had Darth Vader marching in, right? When he was coming into that tunnel. And that music was very similar in tone to the Imperial March. And I haven't been a vocal critic of this, but I've always wondered, like, why wouldn't you use it? And the way I rationalize it is that is the Imperial March, right? That is representative of the galaxy, the Galactic Empire itself. And with this one, because it's Vader and it's Obi-Wan, it probably shouldn't be that. As much as I want it to be, because it's synonymous with Vader, I felt like maybe that's probably the rationale. But I did enjoy the music that was used here. It almost, again, it had the flavor of the Imperial March, but it seemed much more personal, right? And then couple that with that determination and the way he was just, straight lining it to Obi-Wan to go find him once he had got there on Jabim. I thought it was really well. I thought it worked really well. It was the first time I got caught up in the music and thought, whoa, this is kind of Star Wars sounding.
Right. Yeah. I thought the music was actually very, very good, but I'm on the other side. I think this was the first time I was like, man, this is where the Imperial March would have been absolutely perfect.
Mm-hmm.
And it really would have, I think it would have taken it to just a different level. Like I said, I think the score was fantastic in this episode, pretty much, start to finish. It was really good. It was much more prominent. It was much more dramatic. It was much more kind of what we would, assign to a traditional Star Wars type of score. I know it's been there throughout the series, but
right.
it felt like it was on, front and center display for this part. But it was the first time where I was like, man, this would just add something just entirely different to it. And you had sent me a video where with part 3, right, where Obi-Wan and Vader are fighting, and they had overlaid the throne room music from Return of the Jedi.
Yeah, and a couple other pieces as well, I think.
Right, yeah, and they kind of mismatched it there, but it just added a completely different level to the visuals. Just completely, and it was very rough. It was a very, very rough cut. So I'm not saying it was the end all be all, but man, just the imagery and the emotion that it gets out of, especially fans who may have grown up or really love Return of the Jedi and then love that final sequence between Luke and Vader. It really did something different. I think this was that scene in Part 5 where just that little bit of extra would have just blown our minds. We finally would have got the Empire theme, and I think it would have been the most appropriate thing. But I'm with you, though. I do understand why they wouldn't. And it goes back to that personal feeling of, well, really, it just needs to be more personal, right? It can't be the galaxy wide. This is a one guy against another guy, and everybody else is just caught in the middle.
And
yeah, I mean, but still, I'm on the fence about. I'm not really on the fence. I think Imperial March would have been fantastic, but
I think it would have changed the dynamic of that scene. I think even more. Right.
Yeah, and I'm kind of curious how I would feel watching it, and maybe I need to go just do it myself, and just see what it sounds like. Got the tools to do it, but and just to be able to see how I would feel with it, and kind of compare both ways and see what works for me.
All right. Well, let's talk about so this is again another episode where we were jumping back and forth. So I thought maybe we could just start. Let's talk about the flashback scene as a whole, because I think that kind of really sets, it does, right? It sets the tone.
This is Obi-Wan. Yeah. Hey guys, spoilers left and right. if you're not on board with this yet, we're sorry, but spoilers from here on out. We are going to pull the Band-Aid off everything. So
yeah. So
this is the Obi-Wan and Anakin flashback scene, to be
flashback
specific.
Scene prior. It looks like it's prior to Revenge of the Sith. He's still a Padawan, right? So this is Attack of the Clones era.
Yeah, prior to Attack of the Clones, I bet.
Yeah.
That's my guess, yeah.
Still very early. I the very first note I have in our show notes says eye candy, because it really was. I mean, watching them together again and going through that little lightsaber fight that they have beginning to end was pretty impressive. They still got it. I know they spent a lot of time. You look at, you go back to the press tour that they're still on, actually. And this is what they've been talking about a lot, is just how much they've dedicated to the training and the trainers coming in, and how it was, one was better than the other. And like, I think it was, I think they said Ewan was like, didn't miss a step. He like jumped right back into it and was full blown Obi-Wan Kenobi again. And I think Hayden said it took him a little bit to get going and find his groove. But in the end, I thought it was really good. And I love the style, like the styles themselves. I was seeing things that we'd seen in Clone Wars. I was seeing a lot of mirrored shots and attacks and things that we saw from Revenge of the Sith.
Absolutely.
There were things that were happening that I saw from Luke versus Vader towards in the original trilogy. and it was just the way it was all kind of intertwined and connected. What I thought was brilliant. But overall, I mean, I could watch those guys duel right in the fence, if you will, all day or spar all day long.
Right. And when one gets an advantage, the other one is able to, create that as a disadvantage for them. I mean, again, it goes back to they know each other so well. And I think you also see some of the duel that Ben and Vader have in part 3 as well. There's definitely some similarities in there too that aren't just baked in some of the other films. But man, yeah, some of the Revenge of the Sith visuals in particular were, okay, yeah, these are these guys coming into their prime, their prime fighting style and their prime youth, if you will, and so it was really cool to be able to see all of that. And I think also just to be reminded of Anakin's, I mean, his pride definitely, which I don't know that we need a whole lot of reminding of, but
right.
really his insane aggression and he's just relentless, and we see it with Vader, but we sometimes don't remember that that's Anakin too.
Yeah.
Like Anakin was very relentless, and to the point where this was actually felt much stronger. But if you go back and you think about Attack of the Clones, and you think about the scene on Tatooine between Padme and Anakin, if you start to play this, this combat sparring sequence in your head while you watch that sequence, I think it's going to give you a completely different feel for what he is talking about to Padme.
Yeah.
And it all comes together much. And so it's just cool that one scene like that can really bridge so many, different aspects of the entire saga in so many different ways. And I think it was just really powerful. I think that's where, if you ever question that these people, whether they love Star Wars or not, or they know Star Wars, I mean, these are the things where your answer is in spades. I mean, they shut you down right away because it's clear how much they know, and it's clear how much they love it.
Yeah. And the aggressiveness was one of the things I loved the most about this fight. Even at the very beginning,
they're not holding back. Yeah.
There's a pace to it already the way it kicks off. But as they keep coming back, it just keeps ramping up, and it starts to almost turn personal, right? Because you can see it in Obi-Wan's eyes. Like, Ewan McGregor does a good job of like, hey, calm, almost like calm down. You're going a little too far, and that was the lesson here, is right. He's getting too confident. His aggressiveness is growing too much, and it's going to eventually be, his what was it, his thirst for victory or whatever.
Yeah,
is ultimately what's going to blind him. Yeah, his need for victory is going to blind him. And of course, this was mirroring what was happening in the episode, right? There was no surprise there that we would see some of that. But I did enjoy the way it continued to escalate, and it continued to get a little bit edgier, and it started to become personal, right? And it kind of plays to this idea that Anakin, as much as he loves Obi-Wan, like I believe in all sincerity, when they finally part ways in episode 3, right before, everything really kind of the bottom falls out, they have that really tender moment with one another where he tells him, you're a great Jedi, and I'll see you later, whatever. They part. I do believe that is the core of their relationship, but there is some tension there, and it's very different. It's a very different relationship, and some of it is just from the fact that Anakin has got this aggressive streak to him. He is going to be a little bit more volatile. He is going to be a little bit more easy to manipulate. He's connected to his feelings in ways that most Jedi are not, because they have already been, I wouldn't say bred out of that, right? But they've already been, it's been worked out to some extent, right? They're not relying on their feelings as much as Anakin, because he does tap into that. That's what obviously makes him such a great fighter. It makes him so skilled. It makes him adept at thinking quickly on his feet and giving him all these other abilities. But that's the part where things get a little bit, cautious because of what ultimately happens. He gives gives into his aggressiveness too much and to his emotions too much, and ultimately,
right. And with Anakin, the best defense is a great offense.
Yeah.
And I think we get to see Obi-Wan doing the other side of it. And again, it kind of plays into what, when Obi-Wan, says there's alternatives to fighting on the Millennium Falcon in A New Hope. I mean, this sequence and a couple of things that happen in this episode just completely validate, everything there. And you start to see not only, how did he get to that point, but at the same time, just that's Obi-Wan. He's always thinking about, there's got to be another way. There has to be another way. And so when he's admitted, potentially beaten by Anakin in this scenario, there's always a way out. You've just got to find that way out. And I think this is what the Jedi do in general, right? I think, and Anakin's bred this way too. I think even though he joined older, but, it's always find something, never give up. You can't quit, like Roken tells him a little bit later, right? Which I don't know that that's what he was doing, but but it was just really cool to be able to see those moments where he's like, okay, there's alternatives to doing all this. Just because you don't have a weapon doesn't mean you're beaten. And so it was really good to see those themes continue to come out.
I want to go to the comments just real quick. Gary says, with the age of them being current to Kenobi, I wonder if when this scene took place, looks like before Attack of the Clones.
That's our guess. Yeah. Sometime pretty soon after, or soon right before. Yeah.
Qui-Gon Jay says, only one problem with the flashback, and it wasn't the 40-year-old Padawan. We'll talk about that here in a little bit, but it wasn't. It was that there wasn't a single ship on the Coruscant skyline.
Nice catch, Qui-Gon Jay. I'm glad someone said it. It seemed, I didn't think it was Coruscant at first because A, it was very white, and then B, there was no air traffic, and there weren't really any identifiable buildings. I've seen some people say Anakin's looking out at Padme, or he's looking at this or looking at that, but when you go look at the landscape, I didn't notice any that were really super descriptive that you would be able to say one thing or the other.
Yeah, I think it was enough for me to think it was Coruscant, I guess. At first, I would agree. When we get that very first opening shot and the camera pulls back, it took me a while to get my bearings, right? But I did look into this. It was a Sunday and everything was closed. So there was no traffic. Chick-fil-A was closed as well. So there you go. That's the reason.
There's no reason to go out if Chick-fil-A's closed.
Chick-fil-A's closed. Why are you driving around? Yeah.
No, for the people in the South, that makes a lot more sense than anybody in the North.
Yeah. But I would agree, like you would expected them to have more traffic and all that. I would agree there.
Yeah, you don't need it. Again, it was just something else. I think the other thing that was interesting is that the floor, when they hit the lightsabers on it, the floor wasn't damaged. So again, it kind of cements that they were in the temple in some sort of sparring area that seemed impervious to lightsaber wounds.
Oh, we have some other reasons going on here. So they were at church, says Lauren. Then Alex says, oh, pandemic. Everyone is quarantined. So I think both of those are viable. It could be all of these. It could have been Sunday during the middle of a pandemic and most people were attending church over Zoom.
But you know what was most important about this sequence, though, Albert?
What's that?
How immaculate Obi-Wan's beard was for an Attack of the Clones style beard.
Yeah.
Nailed it.
I knew you would focus in on that.
Hey, if you're going to hit me for Tatooine, I'm hitting that damn beard.
Hey, so let me. I've got some more. We're not done talking about this.
Oh no, yeah. There's still a lot more.
Some of the quotes here, but before we do, let's just talk about the de-aging. I wonder if they were employing some of the deepfake techniques that we saw when this was shot, or was this post? Were they still trying to do some combination of CGI? I don't know that we'll ever get the answer. Maybe we do, maybe we don't. But it did look a little like I would have expected more. It didn't take me out of it, though, because I was just so enthralled by the fight and what they were doing, and I couldn't have been happier. But if I'm looking at it with a very skeptical eye, there were moments where you could see, Hayden's gotten, it was really noticeable. You could really see those side creases on his mouth. And then later on, when he comes in as part of, Order 66 and Nightfall and all that, he's got that one really long crinkle in his forehead that was obviously not there in episode 3. But what did you think? Do you think this was deepfake stuff? Do you think it was prior to, some combination thereof? Do you care?
I think they've probably moved to deepfake now. Some of this kind of depends on when they filmed it. And so if it was in the last year, presumably they would have been leveraging the same things that they had already learned from Mandalorian and Book of Boba Fett. But I think the visuals when they were further away, I was fine with. And I kept trying to think. I didn't have a chance to go look at the Luke Skywalker scenes of, did we ever get this close to Luke Skywalker? And my guess is probably not quite that close, but the Luke models were so overwhelmingly refined compared to them. They were probably trying to use more of Hayden Christensen than they would of like a Mark Hamill. And if you're trying to compare apples to apples, to where they tried to use more of it, and I think that's what made it look a little bit more difficult to not be pulled out of it when he was really up close. It was really when he was up close that it was noticeable, because then it started to not look like him in some ways, especially the last sequence before they move off camera, and at the end of the sequence, he really does look awkward when he's moving, and it just didn't quite work for me there. But was it noticeable? Yes. It wasn't the same 20-year-old Hayden Christensen, but at the same time, but at the same time, I thought it was working for a while until we kind of got to that last moment. But I mean, Hayden Christensen is the one still there, right? The smile, the attitude, the smirks, the facial expression still came through to where it wasn't enough to completely ruin the scene for you, and actually still make it quite good.
Yeah, and the way I would measure this, honestly, if you think about it, if you're anybody, think about what you were doing when you were watching that scene. If you were like me and you were just smiling the entire time or crying, Lauren, sorry, either way, right? If you were, if you were smiling or crying, then the scene worked for you, right? I think it's fair for you to kind of go back and say, well, there was moments where I could tell and that sort of thing. That's all fine criticism, but at the end of the day, mission accomplished. They did what they set out to do, which was get us to feel that again, get us to see them again in those characters. And I thought, Obi-Wan, Ewan McGregor is not really playing that far of a deviance from where he was, right? Because he's an older person by then, or he's an older adult, if you will. But for Hayden to go back and rekindle that youthful spirit and playfulness that he had in this scene, I thought was really great as well. I thought he did an excellent job.
So how do you feel about them using a pre-Attack of the Clones Obi-Wan and Anakin versus maybe using a Revenge of the Sith? Is it just purely because Anakin is still clearly a Padawan and isn't there yet to go into knighthood? Was that really the important aspect of that, or do you think there was another reason why they picked that time frame rather than something a little later on, which visually might have worked a little bit better?
Right, it'd been a much easier transition. I think you're right. I think it's more about, I don't know if you made a decision, but what you said was right. I think it was more about the dialogue, right? Because he tells him at the very end, this is why you'll never be, you're not going to be a knight. He says, you're a great warrior, Anakin, but you need to prove yourself. Your need to prove yourself is your undoing. Until you overcome it, a Padawan you will still be. And they could have said that, used that same line and said, a Jedi Knight you will still be, right? Not a master, right? They probably could have recontextualized that line.
Right.
I think that was really the only reason. To kind of go back to some of the other stuff you were saying just quickly, this fight was so fast that I think you're right. Maybe it's one of these things where we're just not there with deepfake when things are moving very quickly. With the Luke stuff, there were moments where he got in really close, and the one in particular that comes to mind is at the very end where he's presenting the choices to Grogu. There's some pretty close, tight shots of his face, but he's not moving much. So it doesn't take a lot of compute, if you will, to get him to stay and look that way. Whereas this, you've got them moving left to right, they're flipping around, they're turning. That's a lot of computation that has to happen for a technology that's still probably in its infancy. So I would probably chalk it up to something like that, where it overexposed itself in some of those moments more than anything else.
I think it was important for them to do this pre-Attack of the Clones, and for what they needed to try to get done. I thought Obi-Wan looked great. They got that. I kid about it, but they got the hair and the beard. His look was very good, and you could tell they did a little bit of smoothing for him as well.
Mm-hmm.
But still, and like you said, they probably didn't have to work quite as hard of it because he was already an adult.
Yep.
But no, I think it was important for it to be during that era when he was definitely still the learner, if you will, if you will.
All right, so some of the lines that were in here, and I couldn't, man, as the first time I watched this, I kept thinking, whoa, and I couldn't stay with it because there was so much going on. But through the course of reading the show notes, it was very therapeutic because I was able to really put some thought into some of these lines and where they can be applied in other bits and pieces of Star Wars. So it's specifically to Anakin, Luke, and Vader. And Obi-Wan, but some of the ones that stood out for me when he says "you were beaten," right? He says that to Luke, or he says that to Obi-Wan, and that's the same line that he utters to Luke on Empire Strikes Back after he falls on his back and he tries to get him. He's about to break the news that he's his father. There's also this whole thing about your need for victory, Anakin. It blinds you. How many times did we see that? Right? In Clone Wars, in the movies. It was a hard lesson, I think, for him to learn, and this was probably one of many times that Obi-Wan had said that to him. I thought that was great. Mercy doesn't defeat an enemy master.
Yeah, this one really felt Clone Wars inspired.
Yes. Well, tell me more about that for you. I guess what were some examples?
Well, I didn't have anything in particular, but I think just generally when you think about how the Jedi were approaching the Clone Wars in general compared to, or as a group compared with Anakin.
Mm-hmm.
Anakin was willing to push the bounds a little bit further. He was willing to go ahead and take the lives, and we saw this with Tench, I believe, during the Bad Batch episode with Anakin. He was all right with taking the life, right? And so it was Tench, right? That was the name.
Yeah, I
the
think
spider
so.
guy. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it was Trench.
Trench. There we go. Trench.
Yeah, Trench.
Trench coat. No, anyway.
No, let's not go there.
Right. But I mean, those types of visuals kind of came to my head of, if there was anybody that would be okay with taking that extra step, of course it would be Anakin over pretty much anybody in the Jedi Order. There's very few, I think, that would come to mind quickly that wouldn't at least pause and hesitate than they would. Now, Anakin, as he gets a little bit older, clearly as he gets closer to becoming Vader, that seems to be less of an issue for him. But anyway, yeah, it felt very Clone Wars-ish as well. And actually, Mercy doesn't defeat an enemy. Kind of seems like a Clone Wars title, of what they would flash on the screen, right?
Yeah, exactly. So where that line resonated for me was, and I don't know if you want to call it irony, but if you think about where Vader nearly died at the hands of Luke, right? And I know I get Luke was at the core of it. Luke was throwing his lightsaber away, saying, "You failed. You're not going to convert me. I'm a Jedi like my father," right? But in some ways, this is exactly what saved him. This is what he did defeat his enemy through mercy, right? Because he stopped short of killing him, showed him mercy, and as a result, Anakin was reborn, right? I don't want to get too into it, right? But that's exactly what happened. He was reborn again. It gave him that opportunity of coming back as Anakin Skywalker. So I thought that was beautiful in that sense that
conversely,
of all the lessons.
Conversely, though, if you think about Obi-Wan leaving Vader to die, same kind of way. It's just kind of the opposite effect, except that did come back and bite Obi-Wan in the butt several times.
And it could maybe bite him in the butt for this one too, right?
How many girlfriends you got to go through, Obi-Wan, before you learn this lesson?
We've all been there, dude. But yeah, it is a cautionary tale, I guess, for Anakin Skywalker at this time, especially given that's going to be extended to him. I think about mercy doesn't defeat an enemy. In some ways, the other one that came to me was Obi-Wan Kenobi and Darth Maul, and how Maul wanted the massive fight. He wanted the big fight. He needed, and it was almost like, you go back and watch those scenes now, especially with what we know about Obi-Wan Kenobi. It almost feels like Maul, he's looking for someone to give him mercy, to show him, mercy, kill him, right? Put him out of his misery. He's tormented to the point where, he's roaming the desert, right? And really sacrifices his own life just for this one goal of having this final battle and being able to kind of cross swords with Obi-Wan Kenobi again. And I think Obi-Wan could have given him the fight that he wanted, but he didn't. And he showed him mercy there in the end, just put him down and, in that single two swings or whatever it was. And then being able to, and of course, the way he caresses his head and lays, holds him and doesn't just let him fall, and is showing that, that respect of life that we would expect Obi-Wan Kenobi to show. I don't know. Mercy doesn't defeat an enemy. I
think there's a different component, though. So while mercy might not defeat an enemy, and I don't know that I necessarily disagree with that on some levels, compassion can, right? And so I think it's just one of those. It's not a complete sentence. There's more to it. And when you show compassion to someone, sometimes, and again, Obi-Wan's trying to do that with Reva in this episode too, right? He was trying to show that compassion, that understanding as he kind of becomes aware of everything that's going on. And with that's a great example with Maul. I mean, he kind of shows it there at the end that it wasn't really anything. Obi-Wan had let go of all the personal aspects of it. Yeah. But at the same time, he was. I mean, they were kind of joined at the hip there for a while. They're kind of on the same path. If there was anything that was close enough to being Anakin, just from a very different point of view, it would have been Darth Maul or Maul in general.
The other, so going back to the last line of there, you're a great warrior, Anakin, but your need to prove yourself is your undoing. I mean that immediately the scene that comes to mind is at the end of Attack of the Clones, where he's almost showboating with. Or is it? And Dooku, right?
Yeah,
and
with
then
Dooku.
later on, and we know what happened there, right? Dooku got the best of him. I was trying to think later on if that in Revenge of the Sith, it didn't really work. I guess it did work in his favor. That he probably proved himself right in that moment because he overcame Dooku and cut his head off in Revenge of the Sith. But yeah, that's the other line or the other scene that came to mind when I heard that one.
Yeah, I think it definitely applies to that one where he just, I'm going to take him now and just jumps right in.
Yep.
I mean, it's perfect. And again, that ties exactly with the time frame too.
Right.
So absolutely perfect.
Okay, I think that was all I had really to. I mean, we've already spent 30 minutes on this one opening, this scene alone. It's a very quick scene, right? I mean, if you think about it, you kind of put it all together. We're talking what, less than 3 minutes? I think 2.5
Something like
minutes, or something
that.
like that.
Yeah.
So very quick. But
We're right on
anything
time.
else?
We have a 10x type of analysis window.
Yep.
So
I got
10
nothing
times
else to do.
whatever the scene, however long the scene was, just multiplied by 10.
That's how much
And
time we'll
that's-
dedicate.
Yeah, just go look at our trailer breakdowns.
Okay, well let's get into the rest of the show, and we can come back and reference this if we need to, but we just kind of know that's right. That's the underlying theme here and the thread that's kind of flowing throughout the rest of the episode.
Yeah,
But
as we get to the Devastator, this is you have it in here, and I apologize for interrupting
No,
you,
go
but
ahead,
I really wanted to get your thoughts on this about, was it Vader that was recalling these memories, or was it Obi-Wan in some kind of way? It seems to be leaning much more heavily towards Vader.
Sure.
But it also seems like there was some idea of Obi-Wan also recalling this conversation. Of course, in Obi-Wan's mind, he's probably like, I've had this conversation 5,000 times with this kid. So he probably had his whole slew of examples to pick from. But how'd that make you feel, though, that Vader was the one still conjuring up all of these memories? And how does that, what is that doing to Vader in that moment? And why would he be the one thinking about this scenario and then falling into the same traps he always has if he's thinking about it?
Yeah, and those are all great questions, and I don't know that I've had enough time to digest it to kind of figure it all out. I will say that I love the idea that it's Vader thinking about this, because to me, that just proves that that Anakin is still in there somewhere. And we've always known that, right? I mean, Padme says it before she dies, that there's still good in him. And of course, we go through a period of time here where we don't see that. We know that's not really around. Although, I guess in the comics, it does come out quite a bit. But certainly, I love the fact that it's him thinking about these things. And I think for the most part, I think you're right. I think he was thinking back on these lessons that he's learned, and it just happened to be this particular moment. But I think you're right. I think it is Obi-Wan Kenobi recalling this same moment as well. And the way this thing goes is, again, the episode plays out exactly like the fight, And so the only difference is, I think Obi-Wan tricked him, right? He was always kind of one step ahead of him. Like he taught him the lesson, but at the same time, as we watch the episode, he's always one step ahead, changing things just very slightly. And I think that's how ultimately he wins this whole thing, is because he is thinking ahead, and it catches Vader off guard. Not to come back. Oh, maybe we'll come back to this. I don't want to say that this is the whole. I mean, there's a lot of people that are still searching for when I last left you, I was but the learner, now I'm the master. I don't know that it's this. I've seen some people already come out and say this is probably what they're talking about here. They're referencing that combat scene. They're referencing this particular cat and mouse game.
The bait and switch, at the very end.
I don't know.
It could be, it could be all of the above too, plus whatever else we haven't got yet.
Yeah. So I think those are all. I think it's all fair game. I think that it could be everything. It could be one of these. Let's just wait and see. I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves. There's too many people have already done throughout the series, beginning to end.
Right.
But to go back, yes, I did love that it was Vader that was thinking about these images, or thinking about this memory. Now his intentions may be different than what Anakin's were. I don't think he was fondly looking at this memory, but I think he was trying to play back all of the lessons, and there were probably other ones that we just didn't see. But going through everything that had happened, trying to strategize and try to anticipate what Obi-Wan was going to do, and of course Obi-Wan is the general, right? He's still the master, so he gets the upper hand here. What'd you think?
Oh, I think it was I was like digesting everything you were saying there. I think it was I think Vader still doesn't give Obi-Wan enough credit sometimes. Much like Anakin didn't either. I think Anakin was a study. He said he was a slow learner, but clearly that was a jab. But I mean, he does pick up on these subtleties and these shifts, and he does learn from some of his mistakes, I think, especially when it's a one-on-one combat. But I think with Obi-Wan, I think he's not seeing Obi-Wan as someone who has actually changed yet, and that he's the same person he's always been, the same arrogance and all of these, ironically, all the things that Anakin / Vader probably kind of are, and so while he's maybe recalling, this is why I was a little bit confused, because if he's the one recalling it, then it seems like he should be more adept and a bit more agile to a type of response, and to not, give in to some of these kind of stupid mistakes, that might be there. But again, I think some of it is, while he's still blinded by rage, it's not senseless revenge at this point. I think that was something I really liked, that he did have these contemplative moments where he wasn't just blinded by having to go and kill Obi-Wan or have him or torture him or make him suffer. While all of those are simmering in there, I like that he is still thinking, and he's just not this mindless robot of destruction, which, I mean, you could still make a fine argument that he is those things, but I still like that he's not all of those things, and that's all he is, because I think Vader would just be, that's dumbing the character down way too much. I just don't think that's the case. But it's interesting that they were both kind of thinking about this sequence, though, and I like that Obi-Wan, again, still calling on these things, but also anticipating, what is it that how do they view me? Not what did they do last time, but how do they view me? Mm-hmm. And that's a very different way of kind of pivoting around. And I mean, you hear a lot of it with people who are being empathetic and you're putting yourself in someone else's shoes. This is kind of a different way of strategizing war, right, in combat. And it could be very powerful. Again, you don't always get away with it more than one time, but sometimes all you need is one time in order to get away or to turn the tide of a fight.
Yeah, and we'll revisit the Obi-Wan's decision to kind of disarm himself and turn himself over.
Sure.
There's some parallels there with other stuff in Star Wars too. So I do want to come back to that here in just a little bit. But this whole kind of flashback thing ends, and then we get who I was not expecting. I wasn't expecting Reva to show up just on the Devastator. So I was like, oh, okay, wow, Reva's here. And, we get this, she mentions the trackers is now working, that they're on Jabim. So she scooted by that whole word game that she played last episode with him about, the trackers with them.
It'll follow. Yeah, where he goes, it will follow. Right.
Right. But not necessarily on him. So she gets away with that one. That's all fine. But when he said kneel, I was like, oh my goodness, what is happening here? I was not expecting this to happen. I wasn't expecting her to be escalated to the role
effectively knighted, right?
Right, yeah. In fact, I was wondering at one point, is he just going to lob her head off, and then we'll get some explanation later, in the story, hopefully. But this all kind of, now that we've seen the episode, we know that Vader was anticipating this was going to happen, that she was going to betray him, or at least attempt to betray him, and yet he went through with all this. So I guess one of the questions that I would have for you, and I don't know that it's been discussed much. I haven't seen a lot of discussion on it. It's probably not that big of a deal, but where's the Grand Inquisitor at this point? Do you think he's in on this? Do you think he went to Vader and said, hey, dude, I lived, right? And Vader said, well, hold on, your moment will come, but we're going to test her out, or we're going to see where this goes, or figure out where her allegiance is, or alliance, or I need her, all right? I don't know where, I wonder
nice
where
choice of
that
words
fell
there.
into. What's that?
Need her. Anakin would say.
Yeah, Anakin, yeah.
I need him.
What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I think, oh man, where to start? I think the Grand Inquisitor is definitely in the mix in the background. And I think it was really smart for them to keep him in the background, because he's also feeding Vader this information. Look, she's obsessed with this mission. Mm-hmm. Something doesn't feel right about it. She's not obeying. She's reckless. She's doing all these things. Yes, she's powerful, but things aren't quite working right. And Vader already knows who she is. He's known the entire time, right?
Yep.
And which was really kind of cool to hear at the very end. But so I think that when you bring that onto the stage, you really want to, in Vader's shoes, you really want to set the person up to hang themselves, because they will eventually give in to whatever their desires are.
Yeah. And
Vader is smart enough to know that, why would she be so obsessed with this?
Exactly.
It can't just be the Jedi and blaming them for everything. It's really got to turn back. And if he knew that he's the one that put the blade through her, I mean, you'd have to be an idiot to think that. Because, I mean, I would imagine Vader sees himself in Reva, right? In so many different ways. If you think about their storylines, it's actually quite, there's some really good parallels in some of that, of where they, how they were recreated, how they had to overcome, and what they did, and their consumption with rage and revenge, and what it did to keep them alive. And then the Grand Inquisitor kind of throws it in her face at the end, which was pretty ironic, but
yeah,
which I think was probably the point. But
yeah.
So I liked it. I mean, it was definitely a situation where Vader was just letting her, let's let this play out.
Yep.
Right? We got to see where this goes. He knows exactly what to expect. And again, he's not threatened by these children. These are pretenders. And he said this in the comic book a number of times. these people are basically a what's the word? Anyway, pretenders is the one that comes up, but they're just not worth spending their time on. It's more like heretics than anything else. There's
Poser is the word we use in the 80s. I don't know if that's
poser. There you go. Yeah, poser would work too. Poseur.
Sorry. Just trying to bring some levity here. So I mean, he's playing her like a fiddle, honestly, this entire time. Which, if you think back, and I haven't had a chance to really kind of digest a lot of this stuff, but now, again, this is why I kept cautioning people to just kind of back off the ledge a little bit, because now, again, that this scene is going to recontextualize a lot of what we've already seen in some of the other parts, right? We know now we can start filling in the pieces and some of these holes that were, quote, plot holes and things that bad writing. Well, no, it's just that you got
to let the story play out.
You got to let it play out. And we still got a whole nother episode left. So, but I think it is going to be interesting to go back and kind of fill in those blanks now with some of this stuff. I do find it fascinating that Vader knows that this is the same Padawan that he stabbed with the lightsaber, who somehow lived. It makes me want to know like more about that relationship and what was that even like? I mean, he's got to know that she was in the ranks at some point, and at that point, like I would agree too. I think Vader is smart enough to know that, okay, that's a red flag. I'm going to keep my eye on that person, and especially now that they're obsessed with Obi-Wan Kenobi, who really she has no. I mean, outside of what we were coming up with, which was she just blames the Jedi in general and sees him as kind of like the face of the Jedi, or maybe she witnessed something where Obi-Wan. She didn't feel like Obi-Wan came to her rescue fast enough. I mean, she kind of says all this a little bit later too, so it's maybe partly both of that. But yeah, I mean, I think there was enough there for Vader to kind of have some red flags kind of fly up. And when she placed that, sorry,
no, I mean, when you think about it, Vader has learned the lessons from the Emperor really, really well. Mm-hmm. So he's not only continued to feed her pride in a certain way, but he also tears her down at every opportunity that he gets. So if she falls into step and becomes a really good, servant, then, fantastic, great. This worked out pretty well. If not, then he'll put her down at the same time. But again, I think you put on, you're getting to the right point of the, why would she be obsessed with Obi-Wan unless she knew who he was?
Yeah.
Right. And now she is a tool in order to feed that obsession with it, because he knows that's going to achieve his goals to get Obi-Wan to him. When she thinks that having Obi-Wan there will be the reason why she'll be able to take out Vader. Yep. And so it's this kind of great kind of triangle where Obi-Wan's just kind of stuck in the middle. I don't have anything to do with you people. You guys did this yourself, type of thing. But it's kind of interesting. And then also to apply everything that the Emperor has gifted to Vader over the years that we've seen in all sorts of material is really kind of interesting to watch him put that into effect and really kind of play it off pretty well, actually. He's done a pretty good job here.
Yeah, Ken says, getting played by a Sith Lord. David Lozano is with us tonight. Albert and Jonesy, hello there.
Hey,
what's up, David. Let's see. Vader calling out red flags in people, that's rich. Yeah, probably. This question's come up. How come Qui-Gon Jinn died of the same wound? And I don't want to spend too much time on this one, but the way I kind of rationalize that myself is you think about Maul and you think about anybody who is a practitioner of the dark side. What keeps them alive? What keeps them going? How do they tap into the Force? It's through pure anger and rage. And somebody and hate. Yeah, exactly. Look at Anakin when he's sitting there burning on Mustafar, right? Part of what kept him alive was just his will to hate, his anger. It festered to that point that even as grievous as his wounds were, he was able to kind of sustain his life. And you think about somebody like Qui-Gon Jinn, who doesn't have that, right? He's at peace. Well, it's kind of different. It goes different ways. And I think and we'll come back to this in a little bit, because I think I've seen people debate whether or not Vader went through with that first killing of Reva when she was a Padawan. I think he totally did. But I think, again, her anger and her hate for what they did, and they being Vader and also maybe the Jedi, because she seems pretty ticked off that the family wasn't there to support her and keep her alive and protect her. I think she's feeding off the hate from both of those sides, and that was enough to keep her alive as a Padawan. And I think that exact same thing happens here at the very end of this episode. It's why she is able to kind of keep up and not fall down.
Well, that's why she's got I mean, she didn't hate Obi-Wan as a child, right? Because she would have had to take time to put it all together.
Yeah.
But it makes a lot of sense why she would hate Obi-Wan over time. Like, he was your Padawan.
Yep.
Why didn't you take care of this? Why didn't you train him better? This is everything that has happened to me. Why didn't you take care of our family? Why didn't you become the family?
Yeah.
I mean, you just see all the reasons why she would just point the blame directly at him, because he is the focal point of why Anakin is the way he is. It has to have been his fault, right?
Mm-hmm. Leland's with us. Says, I just got done watching part 5. This was awesome. Qui-Gon Jay says they used their hate to survive. Qui-Gon was at peace. And Lauren says, I also think you're more likely to die of a severe abdominal wound than not die. Like Qui-Gon was the norm of what should happen in that situation. And then she goes on to say, without medical attention, I mean. Yeah.
Dr. Lauren has entered the room.
She entered the room. She'll be taking questions later if anybody has any needs medical advice of
That's
any
right.
sort. Okay, so let's so he knights her. Oh, what I was going to say is, and again, this is crazy headcanon theory for me, really, and it's small and subtle, but that insignia, I just wonder if that has like a tracking device on it, has the ability for Vader to listen in on her conversations, right? It seems like it just kind of goes on and off, but if I was Vader, I would have put something in there, so, because maybe he heard that old conversation with Obi-Wan Kenobi, right? If there was a tracker on there and he could hear all of that, I don't know.
Maybe. It didn't seem like he needed it. But
He didn't need it. No, he didn't need it. That's where I went. Okay, we get back to Jabim. They get off, and he says, I think it was Roken that said we got her, but nobody mentions Wade. Like, can we have a moment of silence for Wade? Like they
already did on the ship.
But what about everybody else? Like he was like the life of the party, and no one. They just kind of like, oh, Wade, dang, sorry, man, didn't make it.
Oh, so, what's his name?
Oh, what's
has anybody seen what's his name?
Wade, no, I think
Wade. Yeah. Oh, Wade. Yeah, no.
He called in sick today.
It wasn't even his day to work.
I like that. I'm shipping Tala and Ned, by the way. I'm doing the Lando L337 kind of thing. Yeah, I don't know. They were giving me a weird vibe there in this episode, so which I'm fine with. I think they make a good couple. Strong, silent type. Okay. Haja returns.
Maybe she'd be perfect for Geode then too.
Yes,
or
exactly.
Geode would be perfect for her.
Yep. There was Haja returns in this episode, but no Jaco. Like, why didn't they bring Jake? Like, I mean, he got off the planet. I thought he would have taken Jaco with him, unless he just left the kid out in the street and said, "I'm bouncing. Sorry."
Maybe he was there. We just didn't see him.
I don't know. I looked for him. I did not find him anywhere.
I didn't see him either, but yeah.
I do like that he said that he got into a fight with the Inquisitor.
Yeah.
I actually laughed out loud. I was like, that was not even a fight. I mean, it was him trying to BS his way through it. And at the end of the day, she just shoved him up against the wall, took something out of his head, and then split. So, but he's embellishing the story. It's a tall tale now. He wants to make it sound like.
I thought it was fun too. It was fun too that he was like, now I know what it's like to be a Jedi. It is not easy.
Yeah. Boy, you don't even understand, brother.
Right.
And so then we get this piece here about Obi-Wan wants to use one of the transports to take Leia back to Alderaan. So that kind of puts a hole in that theory that at least I had of why they would go back to Tatooine. That seems a little reckless to me again, but who am I to speak on this stuff? But to take a transport back there. And I guess if they're leaving from Jabim, then it's probably not that big of a deal. Maybe.
Right. They don't know that they're being tracked. So
yeah. But Broken says that they'll do that after they get all these people to safety first. And there were 2 transports. I did see that. So I think some people were like, oh, that transport popped up and it wasn't there. No, it's there. When you see that opening shot and those hangar bay doors open up, it's sitting there parked in the back there. So
yeah, it's just not in the forefront.
Yeah, it's the one with the expired license plates. They're just using the one that's got the more.
That's right.
We go back to the Devastator, and this is where Vader tells him to lock down the facility. And so the way I would imagine then that they had to have had a conversation. Like, I don't understand how Vader would have known that he had this ability. You know what I mean? Like, Lola is what she ended up using to disable the bay doors to put them into a lockdown. So she had to have told Vader, hey, by the way, I've got a tracker on this thing, or I've got the restraining bolt, which was more of a restraining bolt. It was kind of, that was interesting.
It was so cute and tiny.
It was. Yeah, it's like the little tiny handcuffs they put Leia and Grogu in, but these are just little restraining bolts for tiny droids. I want to see handcuffs for like Babu Freak. Like that's got to be like about 1 inch wide or something.
How many gonk droids wide is that?
That's going to be 3. I was trying to find my gonk droid. There he is, right here. Okay, so we're if you're not watching the live feed, I apologize for that, but I wanted to make that little gonk noise that he makes. So the whole point of that, though, the reason I brought that up was he said lock it down, and if they didn't have that conversation, how the heck was he going to lock it down? Like they didn't have any kind of remote capability, right? They had nobody on the inside, so he had to have known. So, and again, I don't know. I don't want to make a big deal about it, but any other thoughts as to how that would have happened or why he would have said that? If he didn't?
Well, I mean, Vader, if he knew it was a droid, again, they could have had other conversations between the episodes, traveling back and forth. But so it's something that he could have. If he knew it was a droid, then he knows what droids are capable of, and never underestimate a droid, of course, right? So I mean, yeah. So again, there were probably options, and again, Vader doesn't necessarily care how you do it; just do it. So did he even need to know? He's like, well, I don't care how you do it; just go figure it out.
Yep.
I mean,
all right.
Just do as I say. I don't really care about the way you go about it. I don't care if it's not possible. Go figure it out.
True leadership right there. He wants to break down Kenobi. They kind of mentioned that. We go back to Jabim, and this is where
again,
Lola,
he sees Kenobi as the weak link, right? Yeah. He's the way that they can break them, and he doesn't need anybody else. He can just prey on Obi-Wan's weakness.
Yeah, it's that going back to the very first episode of the compassion, right? Is there itch? It has to be scratched. He's doing the same thing the Inquisitor did, just with Obi-Wan Kenobi, and he knows how to play Obi-Wan Kenobi better than anybody else. So
right.
So definitely more than a tracker. It definitely felt like this restraining bolt thing tracker was also controlling Lola, which is interesting.
All right.
And then when it goes into that room, and I made this joke, I haven't made it on Twitter yet. I was going to post it and I forgot. I wanted to take a picture of it. When it goes
my anxiety went through the roof.
The cable, there's no cable management going on.
It's awful. It's awful.
Absolutely awful. That is a wiring closet, my friend. I mean, whoever the IT guy is of this period, take some pride in your work, sir or ma'am or person.
Right.
Why there's no cable management? It was very stressful.
And if I was Leia up there, I would have been like, you get your ass up here and look at this mess.
Right.
How am I supposed to find anything in this?
Yeah. And I think that was the point, because people were like, why did it take so long? And, well, do you see the wiring? It looks like,
Right. She's not a droid. She's 10.
Yeah. There's no lights in there. That's why it looks that way. They put
all
those
that's
wires
what she just needed to get. That's right. She just needed a little illumination to light the way.
Yeah. David knows our pain. Look at it. David Lozano, cable management, LMAO. You know what I'm talking about, buddy.
Yep. Anybody that's messes with computers or electronics, feel it right there.
It was a rat's nest. Okay, so we get the wall. And do I did. I updated. So let's talk about the wall, because this is where Obi-Wan's kind of walking around now, and he walks up to the wall. We get some more, there's lots of words in here. There is the saying about the light fades, but is never forgotten. Let's talk about that just quickly because I want you to jump into some of this stuff, because I've not had a chance to even digest some of these guys. But that line of the light fades, but is never forgotten. I mean, that's very symbolic of what's happening right now with the Jedi, right? And that light is still around, and the path is helping them get to better places, or force sensitives. You want to just talk about that. But it's also, I think, symbolic of Anakin Skywalker. That light never fades in him, and it's never forgotten. It's the same thing that happens with Kylo Ren later down the road. The light's always still there. So I did appreciate that they called that line out, and you can apply it to a number of other things in Star Wars. Don't get me wrong. I mean, that's not.
It would make sense that's where Obi-Wan's vision gravitates to immediately, right?
Yeah.
Because again, he's he's talking to himself.
Well, and I think that is a reminder later on, because when Reva is like, do we really want the same things, Obi-Wan Kenobi? I want to kill this guy. Is that really what you want? And I think he's thinking about this line and thinking, well, no, I don't want to kill. I don't think he still could have done it, honestly.
No, and we talked about this. Yeah, and we talked about this, I think maybe, I don't know if it was our preview episode or if it was, with the first two parts, but we spoke about this directly, that we don't think that Obi-Wan is capable of killing Anakin, not Vader, but Anakin.
Anakin, right?
And if there's, and again, and when we hear that guy in that dialogue, and we don't get too far ahead, but and when you get that, I'm right there with you that he firmly believes that this light is present in his former apprentice. I think it's just going to be there, and he won't. As much as how bitter he gets at the very end in A New Hope, even still feeling all of those feelings, I think deep down, this is the true way that he really does feel.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he's still his brother, even if your brother has gone completely off the rails.
Yeah. My brother's here with us tonight, and if you go completely off the rails, sorry, you're on your own, buddy. But yeah, no, I do believe like he is thinking about that. So tell us. I mean, there's all kinds of names on here, right? What were some of the ones that stuck out for you?
Yeah, so some of them. One was a West End Games reference because it's been an episode. So that was Corvin Shelvey, who was in the West End Games. I didn't go back and look at the whole history. He was part of one of the expansions, I believe, or one of the books.
Wait, just real quickly. When this episode aired, the minute the scene came on, Pablo Hidalgo tweeted this picture with no context. It was literally just the picture. And I saw the picture, and I remember looking at it and going, "Oh, that's a West End Games reference." I did not put two and two together until I posted this, and I was like, "Oh, that sneaky devil," because he was one of the people that was helping write those books way back in the day and contributing to all of that. So.
Right. That makes sense why there's so many in there these days too.
Right. Yeah. But go on. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt there.
Yeah, I'll save one for towards the end of the. Well, no, let's go and do it now since we're throwing names out. It's not on this board, but if you watch the credits, did you watch the credits this week?
No, I did not.
So
I think I went to bed.
One of the characters, so an actor by the name of Indy Disrocious, is playing a character named Corran, Corran.
Okay.
So Corran Horn. So if you remember, we talked about the names on in the hideaway back in part 3 was one of those that Halcyon was also, Horn's father, I believe. So again, Corran Horn's a thing. Corran Horn is real.
It's really a thing. Yep.
Yep. One of the names is also Jin Atlas, and so for Atlis. So some people might recognize that name. He founded the quote unquote Adlesian Jedi who believed in having marriage and relationships. It was a different sect of the Jedi Order. They still believed in serving the Republic and serving the Force, but they had a very different way of doing it. And another thing that was really interesting about his sect of Jedi is that he also pushed preserving consciousness in the Force after death. Which of course, yeah. So that's a big one. Another. His name may have been in part 3 as well. Now, one name that was definitely in part 3 was Raganda Ismarin. So her name was also there. What's really interesting about her is that eventually she actually becomes an Emperor's Hand in the Legends.
Oh.
So that's kind of a fun one too.
Okay.
Right.
Again, there was another more Mara Jade references. I'm just saying they're
the writing is on the wall, would you say?
Ba-dum-bum.
And then I believe there was another name. I didn't see it in your notes here, but one called Tiberius. And so if it's...
I saw that, but I didn't know...
It's not James Tiberius Kirk, but it might be Tiberius Anderlock, who was in the Galaxy's expansion. He was an NPC in the very first expansion. Yeah, first expansion for Star Wars Galaxy. But he also was became a member of Rogue Squadron as well, which I thought was interesting because I do see it. Here's in your notes. Yeah, Tiberius. So what's really interesting, though, is that, of course, we have a series called Rogue Squadron that eventually will probably maybe come to fruition.
Eventually, probably, maybe. That's a good assessment there. Yeah.
Right. So maybe Tiberius, again, is just another Easter egg for someone that we're going to get later on.
Okay.
So anyway, those were kind of the names in the history stuff I found out. Or that
and there's probably more. Like there's the words "may" or "be with you" are at the very top, and we can't see because of the shot. We don't get to see the top of it, but I would suspect it says "May the Force be with you," right? Or somewhere in there. There's a word of strength in there somewhere. There's of course that line that we mentioned. May the Force. It's actually "be with you" is in there actually twice,
right?
As well. There was the Jedi Youngling crest, right? The symbol of the Jedi Younglings is in there as well.
I didn't catch that one. That was a good one.
And yeah, there are other ones in here. I just don't know. Like someone at some point will probably put a whole YouTube video together and talk about all this stuff. So kudos to them. But yeah, there's some, when that board went up, I remember thinking, oh my gosh, we're going to have to sit here and translate all this stuff. And I'm like, oh, wait a minute. No, that's what Jonesy's for. He's here to do all this stuff, not me. So thank you for doing that.
Well, you had found a couple of other names in here that I didn't go and do. I guess you were doing some internet surfing.
Yeah, but I wasn't.
Some
really,
people had enhanced. Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't really trying to do the research other than just pull the letters out and put them down and say, here, go figure this out. I'm not sure who these people are.
So there are definitely more Easter eggs in there for people if you want to go in there and kind of, do a little bit more researching and go through that. My question for you though about the wall, how smart is it for them to do this, to put names on the walls and to leave? Well, I mean, I get it if it's you feel like it's a long-term thing. You don't anticipate having to move from site to site, and it inspires those that come after you, and it gives you hope. I mean, we've seen this just in Obi-Wan himself, right? When he saw Quinlan's name. And so presumably when he sees some of these other names, maybe he's having a similar effect. I mean, so it seems like he's taken aback, by just how many are still out there. But how smart is it for them to do this? Because if I'm Vader or the Inquisitor and I go in here, I'm like, well, these are names added to the list.
Yeah. I didn't have this one on my list.
You just outed yourself. Right. Yeah, I didn't have that one, So your bingo card is filling up.
Yeah. No, it's a good point. For the sake of storytelling and the dramatic effect of it all, I think it works. But
I think inspiration-wise, I get why they would do it. Yeah.
And I was hopefully this isn't like the wall of the fallen, right? Where they're putting everybody's dead name up there. I don't think
that's why they said there is no death.
Yeah.
That's a Jedi code, of course, but I mean, yeah.
Right. Yeah. But that would mean, Quinlan's name was on there, but thankfully Tala was like, oh no, he's been through here a few times and we all kind of know him. So there's, but I think about it, for going back to what you said with Obi-Wan Kenobi, when you look at him as he's looking at this wall, his eyes start to widen, and he's almost got a smile on his face, and it's got to be overwhelming, like you said, for him to be able to see that, him leaving the way it was and sending out this distress call and thinking this is over, thinking it's all over, telling everybody that it's all over.
To feel that you have two in the entire galaxy and to feel so alone,
right?
It's got to be an incredible feeling to.
Yeah. It's what he told. Was it not Nani? The guy at the very beginning of the Jedi that ended up dying, right?
Yeah.
He's like, no, this is over with. This is, hang it up. Go, bury your lightsabers in the sand. Go live a peaceful life. This is over with. And he couldn't have been farther from the truth. He's just been in isolation for 10 years and been completely cut off from everyone, and including the Force, that he's not aware that there is still something going on. I think a lot of purists would argue that this is not what George Lucas intended. And I understand where that comes from, because growing up in the 80s and having like the West End game stuff and legend stuff, we were always led to believe that there really were like 2 or 3. And that was really it. There was no more out there. It wasn't until the West End games came out that they started kind of loosening that up a little bit, saying, oh, well, there could have been other ones that survived. But
were those truly sanctioned by George Lucas?
No.
Or were they just merchandising things, basically?
Yeah, there was really even back when those came out, there really wasn't any kind of, I don't even think they had the canon levels at that point.
Kind of Wild West. Yeah.
It was, anything goes, right? As long as you could get Lucasfilm to sign off on it and put their stamp of approval, then you kind of pretty much had liberty to do whatever you wanted. And that's where, this is what spawned like the story group, right? And all that to kind of start keeping this before it got too crazy. But yeah, so I do get where they're coming from, but I actually like this version of what's happening more. And I don't think George Lucas necessarily would have a problem with it. It's just, it can't feel too wide open, but we're not saying all these people are Jedi either, right? A lot of these people are Force sensitives, exactly. And that's a big difference, right? Having somebody that's untrained, and Palpatine knew this. If you think about the Project Harvester, that was done during the Lucas era, right? So he had to at least have conceptually had this idea that there were Force sensitives out there, maybe not Jedi, right? But at least Force sensitives out there, and that risk was too great for the Emperor to allow to be out and thrive. So he had to put an end to it. And that's what obviously gave us the Inquisitors and that whole program to really stomp out that fire, if you will, throughout the Jedi, or throughout the galaxy.
So you mentioned lightsabers. And so we get a whole box of them. And I believe Ken put it in the chat too. Box full of lightsabers. I didn't find any, while there were these were kit bashed, clearly, because there were a lot of components that were very similar to other Jedi that we have seen, but I could not find any connection to these in a specific Jedi. I don't know if you had any any luck finding any kind of connections there.
No, I did look at them. I saw some people calling some lightsabers out, and I mean, I maybe, but they're not like 100% like for like for.
The problem I had was the ones that they started looking similar to. I'm like, well, that Jedi is already dead. So they had one that kind of looked like it was Kit Fisto's, but not completely. But I was like, but he died Revenge of the Sith. He's been long gone. I mean, some of these, everybody that kept coming back to was, just been dead for a while.
Yeah. No, and I don't think they would have. I mean, I think it would have been cool if they had done that. They did hold on that shot just a little bit longer. And I mean, the way it was framed, you could really kind of see it. But I think that was more to kind of hit home that they had lightsabers and not, hey, look at these and go do some research because you're going to have some Easter eggs in here. I don't know. We'll see if someone else uncovers some of the lightsabers themselves. But from what I saw first glance, at least even third, fourth glance, nothing stood out to me. Again, some similarities, but nothing that screamed, oh, that's, I don't know, Windu's lightsaber, or that's Quinlan Voss's lightsaber.
My initial reaction was that he picked up Qui-Gon's lightsaber at first. I was like, was that Qui-Gon's?
Yeah. No, I'm with you. I had that on the second viewing, but
it definitely wasn't.
But it wasn't.
The one next to the one he picked up looked a little closer to Qui-Gon's, but not quite the same.
Yeah.
So it was just a lot of that. But I did like the contrast, though, of how we saw the Inquisitors lining all the lightsabers up around the room. And this one's just kind of in a very nicely catered box right next to a box full of cloaks and robes, right?
Yeah.
Which I was like, put it on.
Oh, you wanted to don the robes?
Yeah, I mean, you finally just, it's time to embrace who you are. You don't need to, there's no hiding at this point, right? Embrace who you are and start to become that Kenobi on Tatooine that we see on the Death Star, that's in the full Jedi attire. And so I thought it would have been a really cool moment for him to, and again, Alex mentioned this before, we still haven't had a proper montage. This would have been a great opportunity for a getting dressed montage, just like Boba Fett, and he was getting wrapped in the Tusken garbs.
This section of the notes is called the Fall Jedi Collection. You see what I did there? I don't know if you caught that.
I didn't even see that. Yeah.
This is what it was like. It was like, it's like, oh, here's your lightsaber. Here's your,
all of your accessories and you
get to put them on and play dress up.
Thought we were maybe we're on Galaxy's Edge or something,
exactly,
or on the Halcyon Legacy Cruiser.
Yeah. Okay, so Lola closes the doors, essentially locking them in, bunkering them in. This doesn't bode well. This is where, and then we get Tala makes that comment of that they've tracked us somehow. So she's probably very keen on what the Empire is capable of doing. Obi-Wan then immediately goes thinking it's Vader. He knows that this is not, they're both right in that it is Vader. They were being tracked here. And then this is where he starts talking about what Anakin's next move is. He's going to attack next. He's got no patience for a siege, right? This is, again, speaking to, it's running in parallel with the fight scene that's going on here. And then Vader launches his attack. So he sends 2 units, and I don't know how many people are, if they were squads or whatever. I think she calls them out. If you watch the subtitles, she mentions like Squad 7 and something 8. I think there were a couple of them on there. I couldn't tell how many there were when they took off, but it seemed like there were a lot of them, especially once we get into that, when they breach and they're kind of in that, bottleneck scenario there where the battle's going on. Definitely seemed like there was more than what landed. That's not really important, I guess, for the sake of this, but
it seemed like they had maybe upwards of 3 or 4 dozen, though. Probably closer to 4 dozen or so. Yeah.
So the question I had, though, is if he was trying to bunker them in and he was going to attack them, I was thinking he was going to do something like we saw in Rebels, where Thrawn could have easily done the same thing when he had. This is in the final season of Star Wars Rebels. He had the opportunity when they were sitting there to send troops down and kind of really take them out, but he decided to stay up high and just bombard the heck out of them until they finally gave in. He didn't choose to do this, and I don't know that they need to explain this, but you have any thoughts as to why he would have not just shot them from high above rather than sending in ground troops?
No, not really, because the only thing I can think of is that it seemed like the facility, now they did kind of enter through the top, but it seemed like the facility was underground and maybe it wouldn't have been as effective.
Okay.
Maybe it's a rock, a lot of rock and everything else. But again, it would be less dramatic, Albert. I mean, come on. Gosh.
Well, yeah.
Really a little drama. But yeah, realistically, yeah, if they just wanted them dead. But again, it kind of goes back to, if you do an orbital bombardment, the likelihood that you kill them is high, or it's at least dramatically higher than when you storm the castle type of thing.
Yeah.
And we know that Vader does not want Obi-Wan dead.
Mhm.
He wants to be the one to shepherd him into that journey of his life, if you will. So, that's how I kind of got around that one. I was like, okay,
I'd get on board with that.
yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense to do some sort of damage, but then you got to go find the body, and that just opens the opportunity for people to escape in some way, because people somehow escape all of these impossible situations.
Yep. We would have had the Spaceballs scene where he says, "You idiots! I said by her nose, not up it." So that's probably what he was doing there. So Kenobi then so they set up the heavy gun out there. They start blasting the door, and Kenobi he says, "I'm going to have to give myself up." Right?
Very Last Jedi going on here. Huh?
Yeah. Well, and that's exactly it. The parallel here is awesome, because in my head now, I think Kenobi and Luke have had these. Hey, you remember there was this one time right on this planet where
these are in the journals that we're getting on the
exactly.
in the comic book right now.
Exactly. He's sitting there writing that out and talking about the moment that he, won the war by not fighting. And Luke took this to heart and exercises that in a whole nother level, no pun intended, in The Last Jedi. But yeah, I thought that was kind of cool that they would do that. Hajo suggests that they go into the vents, try to figure out why the doors aren't working. I like that Leia stepped up to this, and that Kenobi at this point had already, their whole relationship, was very, it wasn't, I guess it was fragile. I mean, he kind of looked at her as only a child and didn't allow her to make certain decisions, was kind of all over her back half the time in those first couple of episodes. And to see him now where he's at with Leia and trusting her fully, and then even telling Haja, or it was Roken, look, I trust her and you trust me, so therefore let her go do her job, right?
Yeah.
And
but I mean, what are your other options? Complaining about it's not going to do anything either.
Yeah, there's nobody else that would have been, small enough, of course, to get in there and take a look at that. But yeah, I love the way, and like she had no hesitation. Like she just pops right off, and she's like, "I need a ladder. Somebody give me something. I'm the only one here that's capable of doing it." So.
Can someone get this walking fur ball out of my mouth?
It's exactly what it was.
Walking carpet, rather.
Walking carpet. Yeah, that's the assertion there was pretty awesome. Kenobi gets a voicemail from Bail Organa, and this is I don't know. This is the way I would chalk. I know some people have already talking about this. Is like, why would he do this? Why would he call and leave this video mail, voicemail, hologram mail, whatever the heck they call it in Star Wars, and kind of put out there some really key, like, confidential materials, right, out in the open like that. And the way I would chalk this up is maybe it's just Bail Organa. I mean, as much as we love him and he's so, well-rounded, put together, is crafty and sneaky and all that, he is a father. And maybe he just had a moment of weakness where he was starting to feel very, very much like, hey, I don't know what's going on. And he feels desperate. And so he's doing this, and it's purely out of the, I'm trying to, I don't know what else to do at this point. So, I mean, he's
if you think about it,
right?
It might, yeah. And if you think about it, you could be presumably confident that this is at least about a week has gone by with all of this going on, right?
Right. And no communication?
Yeah. No report back. I mean, not that you would expect this to be handled that fast, but I mean, if it's been a week and like you said, you're a worried dad and you know what's weighing on all of this stuff, and you know what Kenobi left behind, then you probably get a bit impatient.
Yep. There was a moment there too when he said, "I know we said no communication, but your silence worries me." I had so many flashbacks to ex-girlfriends where that happened. But he goes on.
You calling them?
No, it was the other way around.
Oh, sure it was.
Like,
right.
We said no communication, and yet, they're messaging me and saying, "Why are you not talking to me?"
Sure, they were messaging you.
Yeah, they were messaging me. Air quotes. I'm kidding. These are all jokes. So the rest of the message says, if he's found you, if he's learned of the children, if I don't hear from you soon, I'll head to Tatooine. That's a bad decision.
Right.
Owen will need help with the boy. I'm like, come on. Stop.
Wow.
Like,
let's just go ahead and just write it all down and put it in a notebook for everyone.
Right. I pray you're safe, Obi-Wan, both of you. But yeah, it was kind of curious that he was saying all this stuff. And I was thinking, okay, well, maybe he'll Maybe he'll delete this message at least, but no, he did not. And of course, this is what's going to lead to the next episode here.
Right.
So we'll come back to that in a little bit. But yeah, I think it's a father who's worried about his kid, hasn't heard any contact, and is desperate. And I mean, if he doesn't know any better, and it's been that long, the only way he has to contact him is through this little device. So it kind of makes sense.
It also just keeps telling me that Reva's days are numbered, because if she starts putting together that Anakin had kids, oh boy,
Yeah.
she can't live. I mean, we've already we've felt that way for a while now, really,
Yep.
since day one.
Since day one, we said she'd probably die.
But I mean, man, it's just, the cards are stacking up against Reva right now.
Lucas hates female characters. They all die.
Oh, come on. Don't even joke about that.
No. Well, it's true.
Well, we did lose Tala.
It's true.
Jen Erso.
Oh, it's just, come on, man. We've had a bad record. Like, let one of them live. Just one. That's all I'm asking for. Can we just have one live? That's all. Okay, so then we get Tala's backstory, which I thought was good. It pretty much aligns with everything we've been talking about. There were 14 people at one point that they had said they were rounding them up for like taxation or tax evasion or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Turns out 6 of them were force sensitive and
Not contributing to the cause.
Yep. Was that what the word they used?
Yeah, it was taxes, but yeah, they weren't funding the cause, basically. It was in the, something to that effect.
And then she ended up killing all those, and that was kind of that pivotal moment for her, that watershed moment of like, what am I doing here? This is not what I signed up for, right? She had her Finn moment that Finn has in the Force Awakens.
And could you imagine just being there feeling powerless? Like, what is that? What am I watching? This can't be what I'm watching.
Yeah. Right.
And then it happens, and you're just like in total shock.
Yep. Were those tally marks on her holster? I watched this over and over again, and I could not tell. Because I guess
she pulled her holster. Yeah, she pulled her gun out, and there were little tallies there for each person. I guess each force sensitive that she's saved. That's how I interpreted that.
I think that's the way I saw that too. What threw me off was they weren't like the diagonal hash marks.
Right, they were just
and I'm thinking,
one.
Come on, man, like that's what you make, right? And then I thought, well, okay, it's a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. Maybe they just haven't evolved the tally marks to that level yet.
I don't know. Bad Batch did it in their bunk.
That's right. Yeah, thank you. Exactly.
I don't need to. I can hear someone telling me in the back of my head, "Don't encourage him."
Right. But she makes a good line. I mean, she tells Obi-Wan some things you can't forget, but you can fight to make them better, which I think is a lesson of Star Wars.
Star Wars in general, right?
That's Star Wars right there, right? And said in like 12 words or whatever that comes out to. Okay, so they finally they start getting ready for this the doors to be breached. Did you catch that Roken had a bowcaster with him?
I did, yeah.
I wonder if O'Shea Jackson Jr. was like, you know what weapon I've always wanted to use? It was kind of like that Samuel L. Jackson moment where he wanted a gold one, a purple lightsaber. I think he was just like, you know what, I want a bowcaster. Like, screw these little blasters and stuff, but I want to wield a real weapon here. But
he handled it great too.
And it wasn't necessarily a Wookiee bowcaster, because I think it would have been
it was just a bowcaster of sorts.
That was kind of cool. I enjoyed that a lot. So I put wizard in the notes. So that
wizard
sums up that. And okay, so then we get Obi-Wan saying that he's going to go out and kind of talk to her. This is his Luke Skywalker moment in The Last Jedi, where he's going to buy them time.
I like how they can talk through a giant magnetically sealed door.
Well, if you watch Obi-Wan, he goes up to the door. He touches the door,
and the screen kind of wobbles a little bit, right?
Does it? I didn't catch that.
At first, I thought it did. And when repeat watchings, it seemed like it did less, but I couldn't tell what he was trying to do.
I can tell you that. But I thought he was using some force ability that will allow him to kind of talk through this door.
Yeah, I thought they were going to do like what Ahsoka and Grogu did to communicate. There was going to be something along those lines.
Yeah. But yeah, they probably could have gone a couple different ways with this, where it was all in their head, right? They were having this kind of force sensitive communication back and forth.
Right, but you still say it audibly.
Yeah, right, exactly. But they chose to have them speak the lines almost as they were whispering. And there was no way that they could have been whispering that low and have it pass naturally through that door. So somewhere,
I would have just liked it if
stuff was working.
If that was happening, I would have liked for her to have touched the door as well.
True.
To where I think that would have made that, connection almost literally, right?
Mm-hmm.
To where you would have that passing back and forth. That would have been much more obvious that there was something else at play rather than we're just talking. There's really a thin strip of air there. The gaskets weren't replaced when we moved into this place, so
Yep.
it's not sealed tightly.
Yeah, you got to replace those seals like every 5-10 years. But there's, I guess this is the one that this was one of the first things that I was not expecting, in that she's actually after. And I'm going to summarize this whole. There's a lot that happens in the scene, but I guess the big takeaway is she's actually after Vader, and not Obi-Wan Kenobi. And I'm left thinking like well, we'll come back to that. Well, I guess we'll talk about it here in just a second. But whether or not there's any light in her. Because there were moments as Moses Ingram was doing this, and this is some of her best work. I thought she's done a great job, honestly, throughout this whole series. I think there have been moments that have been a little weaker for me with her performances, but I could say that about a lot of the other characters as well, except Ewan and Hayden. But everybody else, I think, has had kind of these fluctuations, and that's perfectly fine. But I felt like this was really good stuff from her. Like, she was doing an excellent job of expressing all of the emotion and the fear and the turmoil and the anxiety and the trauma that she experienced as a Padawan was all kind of coming out in the way she was delivering the lines, the way she was seeing things, some of the pregnant pauses that she was making as she was delivering the lines. All of this stuff really worked for me, but I was not expecting this. And I guess I want to know from you, how do you feel about her playing the long game? Because that's really what she's doing, right? She's playing this very, very long game, a very risky long game, and saying, you know what, I'm going to go join his side. And I'm going to become an Inquisitor. I'm going to work my way all the way up to Grand Inquisitor so that I can have the opportunity to stab him in the back and get revenge for what he did to my friends and my family.
And what I really think it did is if you go back and watch part 4 now, and the scenes that we talked about last week with her hesitation with torturing Leia, and some of the things that she was saying there, and sometimes it really did seem genuine. I think you definitely see that, right? She knows she has done a lot of things in her time to accomplish this one goal. She has sacrificed her soul in order to do this, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there's still some part of her that knows that she shouldn't be, or she shouldn't be, and that, really there's got to be something that says, don't do this. But then it kicks back in, and she just remembers everything else that these people have taken from her or didn't give her. And she just has to keep blocking everything out. And I think it really did come through so well in the scene. I think I'm with you. I think this was her, some of her best work here, and it was great. And it's just one of those, when as a viewer, you watch a scene like this, and you just start inside, you start feeling like they have just make the right decision. You were right. You are so close.
Mm-hmm.
Just do the thing. And then they just can't. It's not that they won't, they just can't, or maybe it's they can, but they won't. But
Right.
but you get the point, though, right? It's just that
Mm-hmm.
that drama and that suspense that it builds up, and that just almost heartbreak as a result. Where you just start to you just feel everything, and you see it in Obi-Wan's face too, where he just starts to recognize all of the things that she's been through and why she's doing this. And hunting Vader is never a good idea. So many have tried it.
Doesn't end well.
None of them have ended well, right?
Yep. Right.
Sometimes Vader ends up a worse for wear too, but he's still kicking. But I mean, this is one of those. I think this is what the character of Reva really was needed to be added to this show in order to give just a little more depth to everything else that's going around, and what the consequences of every other action has been, and how that leads to with not just what happened with the Jedi, but everything else she's done since then. And you can just imagine the sins are, very, the bodies are probably piled quite high of what she's had to do to sacrifice to get here, and just nothing's going to stop her at this point.
Yeah. I think we've toyed around, or at least I've toyed around with that theory of Anakin and Vader, and how he goes around killing his own people left and right, the people that report up to him, because he's just angry, and it's all the same to him. And some of that is just. Some of that I see here with Reva. Like you said, I think she's gone through and done some of these horrible things because it had to be done. Like, it was the only way that this long game was going to play out or be successful. And if she played this role and played it to an extreme, and so far, and is, and this kind of explains why then too, I think, for the other brothers and sisters and how they saw her as a loose cannon, because she may have been overplaying it, right? She may have been going too far with some of this stuff to get the attention of Darth Vader. to move up in the ranks and to build that respect, and saying nothing of where she came from and how they were treating her. But I think all of that probably plays into this, and I think we're kind of seeing that kind of come together there.
Well, think about the parallels with her story with Anakin of where they're at this moment, or where Vader is at when it comes to Luke later on. You have made so many decisions to this point, and I think Anakin was like this in Revenge of the Sith too, as he becomes Vader. You've made so many decisions that you can't stop now. Like, otherwise, all of the things that you have done have been for absolutely nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And then you actually have to live with yourself of everything you've done. At least this way, you still have something you're hunting, something that matters, something that that can still make all of this worth it in order to do this one singular task.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you have to, the only thing you're left with is dealing with it on your own and living with all of the things you've done. And none of these characters actually want to do that, because that would be just outright devastating, knowing what they've wreaked on the galaxy and what they've wreaked on families and people and individuals themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just too much for them to be able to handle. So it's a lot easier to do, everything else.
So let's go through some of the other things here that were discussed. We get confirmation that she was obviously there during Order 66. Obi-Wan starts putting two and two together here to determine that, okay, well, the reason she knows that Anakin turned into Vader, because that is information that was privy to only a very select few, was because she was there and she had to have witnessed all of this. We get the flashback scene here also of her getting stabbed. Somehow she survived. I think we've already talked about that. I'm going to chalk that up to just pure hate and anger and rage for both the Jedi and Anakin and the Sith, or the Empire, right? That's what probably kept her going.
Tough to do as a child, but yeah.
Yeah, and that's, yeah, exactly. You think about it, right? How much hate and anger would a child be able to possess to do that? She did look a little older than some of the other Padawans now that we saw her up close. So maybe she was in her teens. I don't know. Maybe there's some hormones going on there as well that kind of helped her with her anger. But this was, the idea that she somehow survived and that, she was playing dead. She hid with the bodies. This stuff was hitting home, because you hear about these survivors and these kids in real life. And I don't want to bring that up because I know it's very sensitive to a lot of people. But it was resonating with me in that regard. And then her saying that she could feel the bodies continue go cold.
That really stuck me in the chest. Yeah.
Yeah. Pretty chilling stuff. And then she says, Kenobi says you weren't hunting, you weren't serving, you're hunting, right? Vader. And I guess, would it be too much to ask for them to have do you think she's going to have a redemption story? Do you think she's going to come back to the light, even if it's short-lived at the very end? And we don't need to speculate yet on what that could be. But if we go back to the line of the light fades but is never forgotten, right? Why can't we apply that to somebody like Reva as well? I think we see that. The light's there. It sounded, at least I was picking up that the light was there. Now, whether or not she follows it, or there's some moment she has some kind of, Anakin Skywalker Vader moment with Luke, I don't know. But I would feel pretty sad if they're going to kill her off, yet another female in Star Wars that gets killed, that they don't at least give her the opportunity to touch the light again, right, and kind of redeem herself in some way. So I guess that's the question. Do you think?
I never liked the word redemption, right? Because redemption seems
you're right.
It's more of a thing. But yeah, does she have I like how you put it. Does she have the ability to go and touch the light again and make the right decision to somehow protect the future? And I think. I don't want to speculate, but I have a speculation on how that's going to work, and it's probably very obvious, right, of how this might happen. But if she starts to learn who the children are and what the children are, presumably it would make her death worth it if she was able to protect that information from Vader. If she were to truly learn who they were and what they were capable of, and what Obi-Wan knows or what Obi-Wan believes about Luke in particular. And so I think there's definitely a path there for her to make the right decision at the end, kind of like what Vader did to kill the Emperor. Mm-hmm. And so while it's not necessarily redemption, I think that word is way overutilized for what it truly means. But but definitely, can you make the right decision after making so many wrong ones? Absolutely, and it can make a difference. And so I think that's where Reva's headed. So again, not using the R word, but I think she definitely has the opportunity there. I think what's really good about it with the performance that Mose Ingram has done is that you can tell it's there, right? It's very much like Return of the Jedi, where when Luke turns himself in, and you can feel the hesitation in Vader, right? Obi-Wan once thought as you do. He's recalling, he's not, he's chipping away at it a little bit, and you can just feel that presence is starting to rise back up from Anakin. And so that you have all of that with Reva. She's not so far down that path that she's not capable of seeing what she should be doing. She's not able to quite make that decision to do it. There has to be a reason for her. It's kind of like, again, it's like the hero's journey all over again. For her, there's got to be that reason to protect rather than to continue hunting. And I think that's the difference. And that's the key difference between being Jedi and dark side user, right? Is hunting versus protecting.
Yeah, that stoking of the flame is what I'll use, the analogy, right? That stoking of the flame happens with Luke in Return of the Jedi when they're on Endor. It happens with Rey and Kylo Ren, and she's stoking that flame, and of course it's a little bit skewed there because he was still thinking about himself and not necessarily Snoke,
right?
But definitely by the very end of it, that's happening, and it's kind of a continuous process. But yeah, I think he made pretty good progress here. He definitely did enough to get her to say, okay, she bought into the plan, right? She took him inside. She knew Kenobi was going to make quick work of the two stormtroopers. She didn't send a ton of them, and they closed the doors. That was enough for him to get away. So I think she's okay with the plan and the idea. And I think it's going to be, and while Maul never had a redemption per se, he never did really.
No,
he
didn't deserve one either.
He didn't deserve one either. But I do like the idea that she could see the light, even if she doesn't touch it. Maul saw it, right? He said, "Is at the very end." One of his last words was, "Is he the chosen one?" Right? Would he bring balance to the Force? I can see where Reva would look at that if Obi-Wan told her. I don't know if they're going to have enough time to explain all that, but her knowing that if she protects Luke Skywalker and protects Leia, that at some point all of this will end. That's probably enough for me. I don't know that she needs to do anything more than just keep that information, or even if she keeps it from Vader in some way, that would be, that would probably be enough for me.
Right.
Okay, so we talked. I think we've debated that at least about what she and Obi-Wan don't want the same things. I think that's very clear. She wants death. He does not. But there's I guess the most powerful moment for me in this whole scene was really the next couple lines where she says, "Where were you while he was killing my friends? He was your Padawan. Why didn't you stop him? Why didn't you save us?" And it's so much. It's the way she's delivering the lines. But then Chow's cutting over to Ewan McGregor, and you can see with every one of these lines, it's just gutting him, right? And he's recalling exactly what was happening during Order 66, probably feeling guilty in some ways for not being able to do more, even if it was or wasn't his fault. I don't think he's rationalizing that in that regard, but he definitely, you can see that really painting him.
Could have been thinking, is this what I was watching? Like, was I watching her in that same room?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it could have been any number of things, but man, yeah, it just had to have been devastating to hear this from someone who actually lived through it all and to feel so abandoned and so alone by it.
Yeah. But good stuff there. But still, before we get to her, I guess, joining Obi-Wan's side, she cuts to the lightsaber door, or cuts to the door with her lightsaber, and this starts that whole breach thing where all the stormtroopers start rolling in. The set on this part, like the volume, I don't know, worked for me on here.
I thought a lot about this. I thought about this from last week too.
Yeah.
And I think the volume, the size of the volume is what is really making these things seem so claustrophobic.
Yeah.
And the lack of realistic scale for the fights. They're too close for what they're trying to accomplish. And so it seems very skewed, where the good guys seem to very rarely get shot, but the bad guys get shot quite a bit. And it's just all kind of chaotic in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
But they're still trying to simulate space. And
yep.
I think I kind of know where you're going. I think the volume is definitely showing that there's only so many things you can do when you want to get a big group of people together to film a scene.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, again, not necessarily feedback, just something that I noticed.
Well, I think it is feedback, and I think it's legit. I don't think it's not from an ill place or anything like that. I think it's, they're trying to push what they can with the volume because it gives them so much flexibility and it gives them so much creativity, and They don't have to it saves money. They can do these things faster. There's so many benefits to it, but it's okay that there are limitations as well.
Right.
And it's okay to say
when we got
that.
in the tunnel. Sorry, when we got in the tunnel, I felt it was fine. Like I didn't have any issues with it. But you're right.
Right. Yeah. Because
It's
your
just that-
space is confined and you have fewer.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the first part of it, it just felt like we were really bunched up all
It was very
together.
claustrophobic. Yeah.
Very claustrophobic there. And I thought, why are they that close? I was like, oh, well, there's a dang wall back there where the screen is at. So,
yeah.
But,
and again, this is why I think some of the scenes on Nur in the Inquisitor's palace or whatever there, the fortress, why those things seemed a bit weird too there. It's just, you're making the best of what you got rather than creating a gigantic set where you can actually feel that space and that breathing room that really help you at these scenes. But I think, in this one, I think it kind of hurt it. But again, you can see why they picked having it kind of inset into a cave, right? Or a rock outcropping that's been cut away.
Yeah.
So that they could, kind of get away with that.
Yep. I did enjoy this whole breach scene. There's a lot going on. We're not going to break down everything, but
yeah.
Lots of stormtroopers died. That was always fun. Not so many of the other people. What are we calling them? Like, I don't know what to call them. I call them the path people. I don't know if they had a name.
I don't know. Refugees.
Freedom fighters, refugees.
I think they're more refugees than anything else. Yeah.
Yeah. But some of them did die. I thought Obi-Wan Kenobi was doing a really good job. It was cool to see him. I mean, he was definitely, more like himself and cutting people down and deflecting bolts back and forth and all that. So it was all good stuff there. But I think the one moment for me was really just about Ned. I mean, he sits there and dies similar to K2SO and L337. So yet another droid that Star Wars just wants to kill off after no, I'm kidding.
But again, it was interesting though, because if you remember back to, I found the humor in that. So I'm with you.
I know.
But I do find it that, they talked about the droids or this particular droid, the loader droids, basically not being communicated. They can't communicate. They're effectively dumb or don't have any kind of sentience to them or any kind of personality or any kind of, I don't know. There's just nothing to them. Yeah. When clearly that was not true with this droid, and then that there was a bond of sorts with Tala, and I think that was really, I thought it was really nice, and it was a heart touching moment I did not expect to get, and I didn't expect it to actually. I mean, I had a feeling something like this was going to happen, but when it actually does, it's like, okay, well, that was actually really well done, and yeah, so it was really sweet though. He kind of kneels and she acknowledges it too, and I know you're shipping them now, but no.
Well,
because that's what Obi-Wan was really saying no to, is like, no, that's my girl.
I know. I guess this was the other moment that I was not expecting. I was not expecting her to die, and only because one,
it makes sense to me that she would, but I was disappointed though. Yeah,
I was disappointed because again, yet another woman in Star Wars that we all love dies.
Well, your expectations, Albert. Check them at the door.
Hey, you know what? It's a pattern. That's all I'm saying. Go. The evidence is out there. There's tons of stuff out there. Go watch it. But yet another woman who dies, and we all liked her. Like we wanted. I was already ready to see her in Andor or see her. And she sacrifices her life. Which, okay, I get it. It's fine. It's good. I got shades of Rogue One here. For sure. But I also felt like this was a real pivotal moment for what would become the Rebel Alliance, right? I mean, she did something that you would expect somebody like a partisan to do, or somebody just who was a freedom fighter, somebody that was in the Rebel Alliance, right? That was an act of that was a sacrifice that I don't think that many of the people there would normally have made. But now they've seen it, right? They're now empowered by it. She didn't die for nothing, thankfully. And I don't even know. And I don't agree with Roken in the sense that had they turned over whatever given in, that she would have died for not. I think she died for a great cause, which was again setting the stage, leading by an example that other people were going to latch onto and say, I've had enough of this. We're going to stand up, and if it means I'm going to blow myself up with a thermal detonator, then so be it. I'll go join the partisans with crazy old.
She's basically Luke Skywalker in Last Jedi.
Yeah, there you go. But yeah, I mean, there was. I was thinking also of the alien scene where they're in that tunnel.
Yeah.
And they blow themselves up, which is also a scene that was echoed in, what was it? Was it the Lorna D book, Tempest Runner?
Oh yeah, Tempest Runner.
There was two characters in there where they they blew themselves up together with a thermal detonator. So
Yeah, and whether
now
we
the third
whether
time.
we right, so whether we agree with the kind of how it went down, I think what we can agree on though is that, and we see this in our own history, acts of bravery and acts of heroism and sacrifice inspire other people to do things they didn't normally think they were capable of, or they wouldn't normally make a decision to get involved with.
Mhm.
Right. And so when they see that, and even if it's something as seemingly insignificant as buying someone some time, those things, and they add up whenever you see enough of it, of people who they're not, Tala wasn't some extremist like a Saw Gerrero to where you could kind of write it off. It's like, no, she was someone who completely, was in the system, saw it firsthand, got out of it, used that to the advantage of all of us trying to save lives and rescue people and do good, and then to give herself, just to give us a little more time, just a group of a couple of dozen of us, it's just, again, those things add up, and those things are remembered, those things are talked about, those things, make it through the ranks and inspire people, across the galaxy in order to do more.
Yep. Yeah, and that is shades of the rebellion being born here, which I do appreciate and like. So,
but let me ask you a question though. So you had posted stop killing the strong women types. So let me ask you though, if it was a man sacrificing themselves, does it have? Is it stronger if it's a male character, or is it stronger because it's a female character? Does it mean more because it's a female character? Because we haven't seen as much of this, and we don't necessarily have as much of this in our really written and learned history either, of what we would find like in our textbooks and whatnot. So does it actually mean more though that it's a woman that sacrificed and made this decision though? Because I'm looking at it from that perspective. Like, does it have more impact? Does it? I mean, I get your point. I didn't want her to die, but I mean, does it mean more because it was a woman who made that sacrifice?
I think at this point in Star Wars and storytelling, no. It's like we expect it, right? And this is probably a whole show, but Alex said it in here too. Like it happens. This isn't exclusive to Star Wars. Game of Thrones did it. He's got Rome in here. Star Wars. Look what they did to Wanda Maximoff, right?
Sure.
It's just a Hollywood theme, and I just don't understand it. It's like, why do they have to keep sacrificing these strong women types? They give them to us, and everybody goes, "Wow, this is awesome," and then they just take them away. And they don't do that for the other characters. And if they do, it's few and far between. So I think maybe at some point it probably meant something. Like, wow, they're so powerful and they sacrificed their life, and that we can look to them as an example. But what about the ones that we want to live on and still follow their lead? Like, why do they keep taking them away? I just don't get it. And
yeah,
Star Wars.
I mean, it takes a lot of effort to continue to create new ones and make you care about them than it is. It's like to kind of use a work type of thing. It costs a lot more to continue to rehire and retrain people than it is to invest in the people and keep the people you have. It's the same with like real estate too, right? When you have tenants, when you get a good tenant, you want them to stay because that's guaranteed money that you can depend on will make its way through the door. And it's not someone you have to go and worry about or vet or change over and have dead time and all these other things, right?
Yeah.
So if you're an investor, you get those things too. But yeah, so I'm with you in that regard. I think when you have a really good character and you feel like you got something special, it does hurt whenever you're like, but there were so many things you could have done with her.
Yeah.
Come on.
And the quick comeback is, oh, you got Rey. Oh, okay, yeah, that's fine. We have Rey. But she's not in anything. And we're not.
Yeah, I mean, there's no plans either.
Exactly. So it's like, okay, so do we have anything? Here,
right.
I felt like we had a character that could have sustained and given us a lot more. So I'm still hoping that in Andor we'll get someone. I mean, besides the obvious, like Mon Mothma, I think she's going to be a really strong character that we know is going to live on for many, many years.
But I mean, we've seen, it seems like there's going to be another character in there too with Andor. Probably a good balancing point for him.
Yeah.
So I imagine that hopefully they will stick around and live longer than Andor does.
Yep. Let's see what else. Let's get into. So Vader tells that Kenobi. He says Kenobi's already ours. This is where he's decided that it's time for him to head down there. And so this is Obi-Wan's plan. He says if he's going to surrender himself, Roken fights back and pushes back, saying, "Hey, if you do that, then she's going to have died for no reason, and that he expects him to surrender. He knows that he's going to do anything that he can to protect those people. And then Obi-Wan, he hands over his lightsaber, his blaster, his communicator to Haja, of all people. Like,
yeah, that was not a good choice.
not a good choice.
Give him to Roken or something.
Exactly. And now we know that the whole reason we're going back to Tatooine is because that bumbling idiot dropped the little projector thing there, right? And so, I don't know, can you pin all this on Haja? Is he the Jar Jar Binks of this whole...
I was about to say, if we blame Jar Jar, I guess we have to blame Haja now too, right? Well, it depends on how it ends.
Right.
So
we'll have to see if that... Yeah,
it all is going to work out, Albert. So everybody played their part from Jar Jar to Haja Astri.
Yep.
It's going to be fine. Don't worry. May take a couple of decades, but we're going to get there.
Yeah. He says there are other ways to fight, which is, I'll call back to A New Hope. There are other ways. What was it? There are alternatives to fighting, I think, is the line that he uses there. He surrenders. We've talked about the parallel there between The Last Jedi and him. He says, you're bringing me to him. I'm bringing him to you. And this is when he's trying to get through to Reva, right? He's playing on that whole revenge. He's playing on the feelings that she has and saying that we can end this together. And I'm thinking it's almost like a
join me.
Exactly. It's a non-perverse way of a delivery from Vader's line of join me and together we can rule the galaxy as father and son. Or
it's it's a more pure way too.
Yeah, right. That's why I said it's a non-perverse way. Like he was taking that to him and
actually I view it more as Luke pleading to Vader, come with me.
Yeah. No, you're right.
Yeah.
That's exactly it. And then Reva asks how, Reva asks he won't see it coming. Like which I thought was powerful. Like I felt like that was good that she at least acknowledges that I could be doing all of this and he may be on to me. Like she's at least considered that, right? She's not been playing this long game very blindly and not thinking that this could all go horribly wrong, but there's a lot of risk in here. And she wasn't wrong. I mean, we all know now that Vader knew from the beginning. And, but I did like Obi-Wan's line about that. All he's going to see is me. Like he's so hyper-focused on me that this will at least give you a chance to maybe, take his life or to get back at him.
Right. I mean, did you take that more as like they would actually have a confrontation where she would do it while Obi-Wan was actually present? Because her timing seemed crappy of him watching the ship go on. And she may have viewed it as him brooding and all of that, but I would presume she would be able to feel all of that. But
yeah, I kind of saw it as
it may have been her first real opportunity, I guess. That's maybe how I had to reconcile it in my head.
Yeah, I think so. She probably had a better opportunity to do that and couldn't take advantage of it for some reason. Again, I'm not making excuses. I'm not trying to fill in holes there, but for whatever reason, this is what she picked, and so we have to just kind of run with it. But yeah, I would have expected her to, in the moment that he was, pulling down that.
Oh my gosh! Yeah,
that could have been the moment where she stepped up behind him and tried to take him out. Maybe that was a better opportunity. With Vader, I don't know that you really have a good opportunity, to be honest. Right?
I mean, again, when you see it, you take it, even if you know it could be better. Right.
Right.
Let's talk about Vader's extreme Force Unleashed action here.
Yeah. Well, so the doors get open. I don't know if you saw in the subtitles, it said happy beeps. Once Lola had been...
Yeah, she got the doors,
Yeah, she got the lower restraining bolt off and the doors were open. It said happy beeps, which is a callback to Last Jedi. Everyone jumps in the
Force
transport.
Awakens.
Or is it? No, I think it's Last Jedi. Happy beeps. Right?
Oh, it is. Yeah, happy beeps.
At the very beginning.
That's right.
And then we get the Vader coming in, right? So he lands, he starts stomping in there, very powerful walk. A lot of walking happened in this series, by the way.
Yeah, very authoritative walking.
Yeah.
They did have walking class, so.
They did. I saw that. I saw the people that were part of them. The movement movement coaches is what they were called.
Yeah, movement coaches. There you
go. But yeah, I mean, from here on out, really was just great stuff to be able to witness on screen somebody doing something like that. And I'm not talking just about pulling down the ship, and because we saw that with Ahsoka Tano in the last season of Clone Wars. We saw Rey and Kylo Ren fighting back and forth with the shuttle. So it's not something we haven't seen, but we've never seen Vader, who we would all think is fully capable of doing this, do it. And some people have already been talking about, well, how come he didn't stop, the Millennium Falcon. Leaving Hoth? I've always wondered that forever, because even, again, not to bring back to the 87 role-playing game, but doing that wasn't impossible. It would take a massive amount of force ability, but to be able to stop a ship like that. Now, could you land it? No, but could you hold it in place? Maybe if you were force strong enough, there was definitely a possibility. And so that always bugged me because I thought of all people, Vader would be one of the ones that would be able to stop that the Millennium Falcon from leaving Hoth. And I always just chalked it up to, well, he was coming in and it was probably a little too late, and that the Falcon is very powerful. And then I would always kind of argue myself, well, if you're strong with the Force, then why does it matter? Okay, so anyways.
So how long do you have this debate with yourself before you
it's been years, like 40 years. Yeah, at least. And I've never won. Never won this debate with myself. But
now I'm just deathly curious how it ends, but for how you stop
right.
talking about it. But
yeah,
that's a Patreon show.
Exactly. But the only feedback, like, this is all good stuff. I'm not gonna knock it. I mean, every person was fanboying out, fangirling, fan-personing out about him stopping this transport, and it was
Ripping
a very Force Unleashed moment where he lands it and then uses the Force to rip the sides off. I mean, you could almost see like the glowing things if you played the Force Unleashed. You could almost visually see those and see your Force power bar going down as you were using the Force to do all this stuff. But the only thing that was off for me was the perspective. Like, Vader looks like the shuttle's got to be massive, right? Because it got a ton of people in it. But if you look at it, the way that it's shot, and again, I couldn't tell. It looked like they used the volume to put up the shuttle. Like, the shuttle itself was in the volume itself. Like, that was part of the background, and they just had Hayden Christensen or whoever was in there, just standing there in front of this screen, pretending as though he was bringing it down, and we were watching that. But
I have a feeling you're right. Yeah.
It threw the perspective off for me. So, and it
didn't seem. Yeah, he seemed much bigger to scale than what you would have expected. Yeah,
yeah. And
or it was just a smaller shuttle. I don't know.
Maybe, but you had to have another one behind it, right? Because that one takes off. So
right,
that should have been more expansive, in my opinion. But it's fine. It's totally cool. It was a total geek out moment. I was screaming in all caps on Twitter when this was going on. So I was pretty excited about it. But what did you think? I mean, how did you feel about seeing this moment? And we'll get into the Reva fight here in a little bit, because that was, for me, that was even more impressive than what he was doing here. I expect Vader to do this. I don't know that I was expecting Vader to do some of the other things he was doing, though.
Right. And I mean, when you compare it with Empire Strikes Back, he also knew he had an entire fleet out there, or he had his ship out there that was going to hunt down the Millennium Falcon too, but maybe not quite the same. But I mean, yeah. I liked it, though. I thought this was great. Again, just another example of Vader exerting his power. And again, who better to do it when you care? His interest in Obi-Wan is so singularly focused and intense that he would be doing things that were a bit more extreme, or maybe beyond the realm of what is maybe normal for a Force user, or that is typical, and that he would dig deeper to do it. Because in the subtitles, they also said that he was straining to bring the ship and to lower it down. Now, and I thought I heard a little bit of a grunt, but I couldn't quite tell because of the other sound effects. But again, that he's exerting a lot of will and is able to do it, I think was really cool. And ripping off the doors, I think that was the part that was a little over the top for me, was, okay, well, how's he just able to rip this thing apart? Because, I mean, you start to think kind of like you and your other half there in your head. It's like, okay, well, why does he just rip everything apart all the time? So, but again, it made for good theater, though. And it was cool to see him. Like, he is not going to let Obi-Wan Kenobi get away, and the extent the how far he'll go and how much pain and damage he'll inflict. There's no limit on what he'll do. And if people were attached to that and got flung out of it, so be it.
Oh yeah, I mean, he was so revved up with anger at this point, and knowing, like, and you make a good point. I didn't really consider that. Yes, he was after Luke Skywalker, right, in Empire Strikes Back. But I don't think he had the level of desire as he has right now, because he's already I still believe he allowed Obi-Wan Kenobi to leave, and maybe that'll be answered here in the next episode or not. But I still believe in my heart that's probably what happened, because he could have done a number of things in that moment. And we've already we won't break that down because we've already talked about it. But I think he could have done a number of things. So I have to believe that he did allow him to leave, and now he had everything planned out. He trusted Reva to have this. He ensured, as the lockdown, everything was going as planned, and yet here goes this shuttle about to head out. And at this point, once it leaves, I think that, in his mind at least, the trail goes cold. So right. he probably gave everything he had to hold that ship in place, then land the ship, and then rip the doors off. And I would expect, even with somebody as powerful as Vader, at that point, he's probably not going to be able to do a second one.
A big gas.
It's not. I mean, again, it's not a small feat, and I think that's even been consistent all the way back to, back to that old role playing game. Yes, it was possible, but it was so impossible that only a very select few could do it, and it was like a once in a it wasn't something you just keep doing over and over again, right? So,
right. And like you said, when he storms into the room, he's got all of the adrenaline going, where he knows what he's going to step in there and what he is probably going to do.
Yeah.
But when you think you've accomplished it, and you've done all of that stuff starts fading.
Yeah.
And then for another ship to take off right behind you, you're just caught unawares in that regard. It wasn't what you expected to happen.
Now,
So
Avar Kriss could have done that. I think Avar Kriss could have done that.
Yeah, if she's done out there trying to kill Lorna D.
No, in all seriousness, though, if you think about it, like a Jedi would be somebody that I think could do it a second time.
She couldn't do it the first time.
More than it. Oh, well,
So,
hey, leave
just
her
saying.
alone. She was trying.
She did.
Fuck, man.
Now, granted, they were really hitting the thrusters hard. It wasn't a decoy either.
Yeah.
So that could have been another reason why this worked out, but other times it hasn't. The Falcon, the Falcon's a fast ship, right? They could hit the thrusters pretty hard and
fast ship. You've never heard of it,
right? Make 0.5 past light speed.
What I would have done is had them like send the first ship up, and then while he's holding that one, send the second one up. You know what I mean? Like in that, like almost immediately.
Well, now you're starting to sound like a separatist. I'm still not going to get that quote
You're
ever
supposed to
right.
say, no, well, you're supposed to say, I don't believe you, or
Right.
I don't believe that. You're starting to sound like a separatist.
I know. I say it wrong on purpose now.
Okay, all right. Well, we're almost done here.
If only that were true.
No, we really are. I think we're just about done here. So Reva's opportunity comes here, right? So Vader's sitting there sulking once again. He sulks a lot, like he's
he's brooding, not sulking. He's
Okay,
brooding.
fine. I don't know. It's hard to tell under that mask, but
Wait.
we'll give him the
Fair
benefit
enough.
of the doubt. We'll give him the benefit of the doubt. He's brooding, not sulking. But similar to Rogue One, when the ship gets away again. But this is where Reva comes up behind him, and she just took way too long. Chalk it up to anticipation or anxiety or hesitation and whether this was going to work. But this whole battle, this whole scene wasn't even, again, it's him toying with her.
Yeah.
He's stopping her attacks with the Force, which I love, because we finally saw that in The Rise of Skywalker between Rey and Kylo Ren. And that in itself is a feat of power it takes a lot to do.
We also saw it in Ronin too, or in the in Visions with the duel. Remember, he caught the lightsaber.
Yeah, exactly. He's sitting there holding it, right?
Yeah.
It takes a massive amount of Force ability to be able to do that. We also kind of got, maybe not. I mean, something similar with Obi-Wan and Anakin in Revenge of the Sith, when they're in the room and they're locked and Force pushing each other, right? It's sort of the same thing. It takes a lot of Force ability because you're having to overcome their internal Force ability, if you will, right?
Right.
So the way he was just going about doing this and stomping, like he was stomping the lightsaber moments, he was stomping her arm, her moving her hands, physically moving her body when against her will, at will, as much as he wanted to.
It was like martial arts blocking without touching, though. It was really cool to watch. It was really neat.
I posted the GIF on Twitter last night of Neo at the very end of the Matrix, where he's just unconsciously blocking everything that Agent Smith is throwing at him. It was very similar to that. But yeah, I loved everything about this. I mean, it was just really cool to watch her. And even like the when she got her lightsaber out and she ignites it and then starts making it spin.
Oh, that was so cool when he made it stop.
He was just slowing it, and you could hear the motor and that thing starting to kind of rev down and slow, and you can see it on her face like, oh God, this is not working out.
This is not going right.
I thought she was going to fly off too.
I thought she was too, but then he would have just like plucked her out of the sky.
Yeah, exactly. And then he takes it apart and throws her that piece. Like, I mean, it was just
literally throws her a bone on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
Pick it up. Show me what you got.
I still don't understand how her lightsaber works. Like there, it looked like a full circle that she was spinning, but then they cut away from that and it comes back and it's that half circle.
Yeah.
So
I don't get it.
And
there was a bit of a continuity error there on the show because when she goes to reach for it later, it's reassembled, which was again, just kind of an oversight there on the continuity.
But when he finally gets his lightsaber, he fights her one-handed again, and she's doing everything in her power to fight as best she can. And there's that. It's just a really quick moment where I don't know if you catch it, but he throws his lightsaber at her, and she blocks it. It's to her credit, and after she blocks it, he just pulls it right out of her hand, pulls her, and then he pulls the other one. It's like, holy cow! I was like, again, in all caps, screaming at no one but myself that I was actually watching this happen in front of my eyes. So I
went back and tried to compare it with the Anakin Obi-Wan scene flashback from earlier in the episode too, because I was like, there's a lot of callback with there were some similarities, but they were still very, very different. Because I was like, he's stealing the blade, like that Obi-Wan did to him, which was kind of true.
Yeah.
But yeah, the way he did it was really, that was pretty fantastic.
Yeah.
I thought he was going to bifurcate her too. That would have been like that word, bifurcate. We learned that from Claudia Gray.
That's right. Yep, I forgot about that. Okay, and then we the next part here is as he's approaching her, and we get the flashback scene. She's getting those visions of Anakin Skywalker walking up towards her again.
Well, it's PTSD.
Yeah,
kick it in full because it's happening again.
Right. He stabs her then. He stabs her now. I don't think there's any question in my mind that he did stab her. I think people are still debating that. And I get why.
Oh no, he stabbed her.
Yeah. Now there's a lot of debate going on right now about whether or not that actually happened, because later on even we get it confirmed from what was it? Who was it later? Oh, the Grand Inquisitor. Says your rage was useful. Now it's tiresome. He says revenge does wonders for your will to live. Don't you think? And I think he's talking about himself.
Yes.
But I also think he's talking about Reva and having survived.
Yeah, and she's going to do it again, right? That's the ironic part of it. She's used it before. She's using it again, even though he's kind of singularly focused on himself, it seems.
Yeah. And then when Vader gives that line, before the Grand Inquisitor comes in, he says, did you believe I did not see it, youngling? You are of no further use.
Oh, that gave me shivers. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It was like, holy crap. He knew this whole time and allowed all of this to happen. I'm thinking, dang it, I got to watch this episode again now, because I got to watch the series again now, because I want to see, again, like I said, how that really recontextualizes some of the stuff that happened in the previous episodes. Did you notice the swagger that the Grand Inquisitor walked in with?
Yeah, I did.
I don't know if Rupert, his like shoulders were moving, like, here I come, right?
Right.
I was dying.
You see me back here?
I'd live, as that meme goes. But yeah, I thought this was great. The lines that he delivered, your rage was useful, now it's tiresome. We will leave you where we found you, in the gutter where you belong. Goodbye, Grand Inquisitor. He even calls her that.
Before he takes her badge.
Yeah.
You've been demoted.
But yeah, I was just laughing at that part. Like, wow, this is good stuff from the Grand Inquisitor coming in here with the.
It was interesting that Vader allowed all that theater to happen.
Yeah.
Because Vader usually just doesn't care for all that stuff. But
I know he's standing there so stoic, doesn't say anything. He's not even moving. And then once the Grand Inquisitor decides that, when he says that last line of goodbye, Grand Inquisitor, like Vader flips around very quickly and walks off, like just like we're done here. Like there's nothing else. And I know. Well, here's a question though.
Well, go ahead. Sorry.
Well, I was going to ask you about, I don't know if this is where you're going, but a lot of chatter today about whether or not that was in Vader's character to allow her to stay there. He'd already done it. Why wouldn't he have killed her? Why didn't he put the saber through her?
I don't know. Because he failed once. Why would he fail again? But I think this is also leading towards a new hope. Like, why does he step on Obi-Wan's robe? Well, hell, he has a track record of thinking he's killed people, but he really hasn't.
Yeah. Right.
I think also it's another thing of Vader, again, does not think anything of these people to where, what if they come back? All right. What are you going to do? They're a bit of a threat, I guess, to him in the Empire in some way, but in his opinion, they're so low on that threshold that why would it? Yeah, they just don't. It just doesn't matter. But I would think that he would have, did it for real this time and without any kind of doubt. Maybe the Grand Inquisitor should have just told him to do it.
Maybe. I saw also, and I did not know this, to be honest, but the Powans have two stomachs, and so. That was how they were explaining the Grand Inquisitor being stabbed in one stomach and still living. I don't know that it matters where you're stabbed as much as, where do you bleed from, I guess, right?
Well, I see and the funny part is if you stab someone, I mean, there's this whole thing called a spinal column,
Mm-hmm.
and usually when you hit someone right through, man, those lightsabers, they tend to leave a bigger mark than just like a sword, right? When you put a knife or a sword, you can miss and hit all sorts of things. When you do a lightsaber, it seems like you're hitting all the things, and if you're not hitting it, you're frying it pretty good.
Yeah.
So, but again, it's Star Wars.
Well, I think the easy answer, or the more simplistic answer, is what we were talking about, where these are Sith. They are known to be fueled by rage, hate, anger, and it allows them to tap into
They can do
sustaining
things that
their
are
lives.
unnatural.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's really kind of where it really boils down to. And I don't know that they need to explain the Grand Inquisitor's comeback. Honestly,
No, they don't.
I don't really care at this point, because
I would have loved for it to be something more punishing, or some sort of Sith wizardry that did it, that he had to suffer more because of it. And then this kind of leads into other material. But again, we're trying to get all this done in less than 40 minutes or 40-ish minutes. So,
and we're trying to get this done in 2.5 hours.
yeah, we'll get there.
What if? Oh, you know what? They could have done a Sith montage, like him coming back to life and like on the treadmill and running and getting stronger.
That's right. Peeling the Band-Aid off of his abdomen.
All right, so we get to, I guess, to kind of wrap things up. They get on they're on the transport now. We get the bad news that the hyperdrive is out and that they are in pursuit. Okay, so the way I read that is that the destroyer, right, his Imperial class Star Destroyer is following them now. So we'll get the great space race again here. And then Reva, she gets her lightsaber, and it's to the process of her reaching for that she sees this little the comm device and replays the message, and only gets the bits and pieces because it's been destroyed. That are probably
all the important pieces.
It's all the important pieces. So and then Kenobi senses something. He says something's not right, and this creeping doom, this creeping anxiety shadow of, holy crap, everything that we knew he was protecting, right? We said this, him leaving that planet was a risk. And he, for whatever reason, felt it was calculated enough that he was going to go follow through with it. But now I think it's starting to creep in on him. Like, there's a big risk now with Luke Skywalker, and he may not know exactly what it is just yet, but I think he feels like, I got to get to Tatooine now. Like, something's not right here. I've got to get to Tatooine. So I think they'll explain that. Maybe he goes over to Haja and says, hey, where's the comm thing I gave you? Oh, I had it here with me. I can't find it. And maybe that's where he puts 2 and 2 together. But the way this episode ends with Luke Skywalker, they're sleeping. And then I love that shot of them just it's all, very still at night, very peaceful, very calm. That camera's panning in slowly on the Owens, the homestead there. And then you get Luke sleeping. And the whole time I was thinking, man, Owen probably went to bed the night before and was thinking, I had a long day. He has no idea what's coming to his house, and how pissed he's going to be with Obi-Wan that the fight of all things is now potentially going to be brought here to his front door, literally to his front door now, in some way.
Yep.
What do you think?
No, I mean, all the above. It seems like it's going to happen. I mean, how you laid it out, I think, is exactly how they're going to get there. I think Leia's going to get dropped off first. I think that will probably end. I think they will reunite her with Bail, and he's going to be like, I got to get back. Something's not right. Mm-hmm. I need to go check on Luke. And then it'll probably be the cliche type of thing where he walks in and you have the murderer, the assassin holding the family hostage type of thing. Or she's waiting there. Obi-Wan.
Yeah.
Or something like that. But anyway,
well, I mean, so
I don't have anything creative about it because I think it's pretty much going to be a bit more straightforward, it seems like, from here. Yeah.
Okay, so let's think about this. So they don't have a hyperdrive. I don't know that they get that fixed because they, usually in Star Wars, who fixes the hyperdrive?
R2.
Some droid, right? R2, exactly. Yeah, specifically R2 or Chopper. But they don't really they haven't established a droid. It could be there was one R2 unit in there, an astromech, but normally that's who fixes the hyperdrive. So I don't know that they get the hyperdrive fixed. It seems like some time is going to have to pass for them, because if they're going to have, so Reva has the knowledge, right? She knows about something about Luke and the twins and protecting them. And she heard Owen, which she knew. She knows that name, Owen. So presumably she's going to go to Tatooine. I think she's going to be the one. She's not in the best condition. So I don't think she's going to be able to just pop right up and head out there and get there. So you got to have some time that passes, I think. And I think that's how they're explaining this. This time is going to pass.
She could still be just a little worse for wear. She's alive, but she's
like, Kylo Ren slamming on the wound there, and
maybe not quite that. Maybe not quite that extreme, but I think she's in a deteriorated state. She's not in where she normally would be, and maybe a little bit more desperate at that point too. But yeah, how they get away from the Devastator, I think, is going to be the real question, though. Is it the Devastator? Is that the Star Destroyer?
Yeah. It's the Devastator in this era, and then when he gets
the Executor later.
Yeah, that's the Super Star Destroyer. That's his. And I was just thinking in my head, like, there's
no asteroid field to save him this time.
Well, yeah, there will be no escape for the princess this time. We haven't gotten the big fight yet, and so for me, I'm still trying to reconcile that. Like, how do we get the showdown of the century, as Kathleen Kennedy described it? Right, she said that's what we were going to get. Now we don't know how long the next episode is going to be. So if it turns out to be an hour or longer, then cool, that'd be awesome. I mean, Stranger Things is dropping 2 hours. I'm just saying, Star Wars and Lucasfilm.
Wow.
They're dropping.
Well, let me say this though. Do these episodes? We talked about it last time. It was about 30-ish minutes, and this one's a little bit longer. They feel a lot longer than they actually are, though.
I would agree.
Does it feel that way to you?
Yeah. I mean, when I looked down and I saw
in a good way.
I thought, in a good way. When I saw the time on this one, I thought, well, that sucks. Like, I was expecting this one to be a little bit longer, but then when I finished watching, I was like, holy crap, there's a lot that happened in this thing. So they can do it.
Yeah.
They're out of time, right? We're down to the last episode. So if they're going to stick to that 30, 45-minute range, oh boy.
I think maybe we're a little jaded because of Book of Boba Fett with how methodical it kind of was. Mm-hmm. And sometimes, and this one really is keeping the story moving to where they pack a lot into it in a reasonable amount of time. So I don't know. They've figured out this pacing thing for at least for this series. But I'm with you. I mean, there seems to be three major things that have to happen. One, they have to find a way to get away from the position they're in. They've still got to get Leia back to Alderaan and Obi-Wan back to Tatooine.
Yep.
I mean, I guess you could add like 3 or 4 things to this. And then you got Reva. You got to tie up those loose ends. And then, where's the Vader, Ben Kenobi or Obi-Wan Kenobi final conflict?
Yeah, where's that going to take place?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
So,
I mean, can it really happen on Tatooine?
I don't know.
I mean, that scene, it's possible.
Okay, so a couple things there. One, we could go back to Tatooine. They could still have the fight, but I don't know that they're not. I don't think they're going to break canon. And there's people already screaming from the rooftops. We had somebody chime in just a little while ago here. People are screaming about how they're taking a what all over canon right now, and I don't think that's true. First off, personally, I don't think that. I can see where people feel that way, but I don't think they're going to break canon. And what I mean by that is, some people are out there already screaming that Vader is going to learn that Luke Skywalker, or he has a son named Luke Skywalker, who is out there right now in this episode.
It wouldn't make any kind of sense.
Yeah. Well, and the reasoning would be that somehow Reva's going to put all this together and go report it to Vader. But I think after this episode, I don't understand how you can draw that conclusion, right?
Yeah.
If anything, I think it's the other way around. I think, like we talked about, I think she does the right thing in preventing Vader from knowing that, and there's some stuff that has to happen for us to get there, okay? But if he doesn't know, then I think it's okay for them to have battle on Tatooine, because what is Tatooine? It's just his home planet,
right?
And he had a family there once that he may or may not be in contact with, and the planet's very large. It could be hundreds of kilometers away from Tatooine. It doesn't have to be on Mos Eisley, Mos Espa, any of the areas that we're familiar with, right? It could be some unknown mountain range or on the desert dunes, which I thought would be really cool visually, right? Seeing them fighting on the dunes and the wind and dark and the light, the lightsabers clashing and all that.
Right.
So that's one possibility. They could pull over somewhere to a planet, and that's where the fight takes place. And again, I'm just throwing ideas out there. What if Kenobi gives himself up and says, I'm going to take, pulls a Rey Skywalker where he jumps into a pod or something and shuttles over, and the last battle happens on, the flight deck there of the Devastator. That'd be kind of cool.
That would be, I mean, how they would get away with that without tractor beams and everything else. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You can poke holes in a lot of stuff.
There's a lot of questions. Yeah.
I'm just trying to think where are they going to. I mean, it seems like they got to do this pretty quickly though. Like I don't know that they can have a lot of time that passes for them to set up that final battle.
Well, I mean,
I
and I
hope
guess
we
they
get the
could.
final battle.
Well, yeah, I hope so too. I mean,
Right.
it seems like it might be simpler not to at this point. But I mean, you could probably make an argument they could do it on Alderaan.
Ooh, wouldn't that be
Maybe. I
something?
mean,
Wow.
that would be different.
Yep.
And it would look a lot more like Coruscant, and so there would be parallels in that kind of way. But I think all signs kind of point to. I think some of the thing I have is, okay, is Leia going to be with them or not, or is Leia already going to be gone? Because if they go back to Tatooine, I think Leia and Luke, in near proximity or something like that, I think that would probably start to make me a little bit nervous. I mean, maybe not canon wise, but at least it would start to raise a lot of questions in some of that, and that convenience factor. But so I might not like that as much, but Vader and Kenobi fighting it on Tatooine makes a lot of sense. And Vader might view that as solely as Kenobi's trying to mess with his head and do mind games again. And so,
No, sorry. I was going to say the other thing. We brought this up a couple episodes ago that there are rumors that they're going through and reshooting, that they went and reshot some of the stuff to extend the character of Rhea, keep her out longer, maybe even include a season 2. So some of the things that we may be anticipating or expecting to be wrapped up aren't going to be wrapped up, and they're going to carry that over into a season 2. So
there's got to be some sort of resolution, though, right?
Yeah, no, for sure. And the other thing that we were, I guess, expecting from this was Vader feeling like Kenobi was gone, or at least eluded him, because it goes back to him stepping down on that robe again, right? He's making sure that, okay, for sure he's gone. Like he didn't just disappear or whatever parlor tricks he used, Jedi tricks that he used to get away. So if they don't do some of that, then I can see where people are getting a little anxious about, are they going to be breaking canon or changing canon in some way? And I don't know that's, again, I don't believe that they're going to do that, especially when the writers come out and said, we would never break canon. And he kept his word by saying that the Grand Inquisitor would come back, and we saw him in this episode. Just took a little bit longer than some people wanted. But I don't know. I got to think about this. Like I said, I apologize. I really haven't.
Well, we still got to have a Qui-Gon appearance. I mean, come on.
Oh yeah, my God. Yeah, and I think that's going to happen still. I'm like 100% sure that's going to happen.
I think so too.
All right. And it could be Qui-Gon consoling Obi-Wan after what had happened, right? All everything, whether the battle goes well or not, it could be him connecting with them and saying, look, Anakin is Anakin, and you can't beat yourself up about this. And next time should you ever face him again, you can't be thinking about saving him. He's not savable, right? That light's gone.
Yeah. But there are other ways.
Although, I don't know, because now I'm thinking, well, Qui-Gon as a Force ghost, would he still believe in Anakin as a chosen one?
Of course, I'm like, are they going to have Qui-Gon say anything except "Hello, Obi-Wan" and then end?
Oh, God. Okay, now that I would get mad about. Like,
really, you would?
Yeah. No, yes. I mean,
but that would be transcending to the next stage, and
sure.
that wasn't the purpose of this, right? The purpose of this was to see the change happening.
I would be disappointed, but I wouldn't be mad. I'd be disappointed. I
could see that. Yeah. We always want more Liam Neeson and more Qui-Gon anyway. So yeah.
I mean, they've already given us the flashback. They've given us the Force Unleashed moment. We got to see Vader exact revenge on Kenobi. We got a lot of stuff that we were wanting, some things that we didn't expect to get that we loved.
Yeah.
So I mean, come on, you're right there. You've got one thing left to do, and that's give us Liam Neeson saying something or having a conversation with him.
Right. He'll say hello there. Hello there, Obi-Wan.
End credits. Directed by Deborah Chow.
Right.
Okay. I don't know. We'll put some thought into it. I don't know when we'll get back together and talk about all this stuff, but I'm going
to guess at least next week, either Wednesday or Thursday.
Yeah. That's a safe bet. Yeah.
Safe bet.
Yeah, we'll probably come back. We haven't even talked about it. So again, thanks to everybody that came out. It was a huge crowd.
Well, before we go, so
what do you got?
We kind of talked about this last time. Where's this ranking for you? We've got through 5 episodes now.
Oh, it was the
one more
best
left
episode for me.
Best one, yeah.
It wasn't even. Yeah, not even a question. Like
start to finish, just really cool.
Maybe bold words, but I said this is about as good as anything that we've ever gotten in terms of storytelling. Nitpicks aside and the critiques aside, right? Because again, like we've said many times in the show, we can go tear that stuff apart all day, every day. Sure. I just think pound for pound in terms of storytelling and what they were doing here, I thought they did a great job. And I know, because again, I do follow a lot of these people for, knowing your enemy. I guess they're not my enemies, but the fandom menace and some of the people that have been really, really vocal and upset about everything, every single aspect of this show since the beginning. A lot of those same people are coming back and saying, "Okay, well, that was a good episode," right? So take that for what it's worth. But I think
Right.
I think a lot of people would agree that this was a pretty good episode, and of course, there's going to be stuff you can poke holes in. We've exposed some of that already here, but it didn't take away from the story. It didn't take away from the characters. It didn't take away from the theme, and the message that was laid out in that very first scene, or the flashback scenes with Obi-Wan and Anakin, and just Anakin's pride and how that was going to get the best of him. And then the other one that stood out for me was just the light, right? Even though it's gone, the lights fade, it's never gone. I think that's going to come back. We're going to see something reappear. Maybe that's Reva in the next episode. So,
Right. Yeah.
what about you?
Yeah. I think, clearly, I think Head and Shoulders is probably the best one of the bunch. And I think each episode kind of gets stronger. And that's really, I'm hopeful that it finishes on that high note as well with part 6. And what I really like, I think what really works for this series and what's making a big difference is it really does feel like one piece of work that we're just being walked into the next room to see where it goes next.
Mm-hmm.
And so it really is just one movie effectively that they're just giving it to some parts. And I think that really does make a big difference. We don't have to, set up each episode or kind of go through the motions each episode and feel like we're one-offing it. So I think that's where series like this, where they are self-contained, at least as of right now, it's self-contained, can really put forth a really strong effort in showing like you would in a movie. And we'll have to see how long the next one is, the long one is, and we'll have to see just how many changes they potentially have made to keep this thing more open-ended. But again, I think it's really important you have to have resolution to your main conflict points, especially if you've touted it as doing all of those things as a one-off series.
Mm-hmm.
To change your mind and then all of a sudden cut it at the end. What you don't want, what you have to be careful about is alienating your audience like that you kind of did a bait and switch with them.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that's the part you have to be very careful about, is you can still leave certain things untied, but you have to resolve many of the big things, especially the things that you came into it promising.
Yep.
And so Fight of the Century,
Let's see.
that's kind of a big one, right? I mean, you could argue that they've had really cool fights, and we had a flashback fight.
Yeah.
But is that really what we anticipated? But again, we'll see how long this last episode is, and we'll see how they go about doing it. This is why it's kind of like the sports analogy. Like, this is why we play the game, right?
Mm-hmm.
You got to see where it goes. That's why we watch the shows. We got to see where this goes and try to keep some of your. It's cool to have feelings and emotions as we go, but also remember you got more to come. So wait until you can see the whole body of work before you get too excitable about it. Whatever you read on the internet, I think some of it is also sometimes what you read might not feel right, but if they do it the right way, it can still work. So, take that and go into it. We know we're going to watch it anyway, so at least keep an open mind with it.
Man, Jonesy getting preachy here at the end. Okay. Thank you for
That's
that. Okay.
I borrowed your soapbox. I'll give it back next week.
Thank you. Yeah, I stand on that quite a bit. All right. We'll end the show there. We've got, again, what I was saying earlier is thank you to the 8 million people that showed up for the show. I was very surprised because I didn't think a lot of people had already seen it yet. And, of course, we spoiled everything. So thanks for everybody coming out. And join us on live feed. We'll be back here next week as well for part 6, the final episode. And that'll probably be a 3-hour show. I'm just going to tell you right now.
Yeah.
But we've got some other stuff coming up as well. So Tuesday we'll have a show, and we always do our shows live if you want to join in. The video feeds for Patreon also, we record those, and those are out. We'll put those out. But if you're not a Patreon member and you want to join our YouTube feed as well for that, you can do that, and there's no cost to do that. So this is not my thing. But Jonesy, what is your you got shout outs, right? We got some shout outs. Again, we had a great showing tonight. A lot of great chatter in the chat. Steph, Jonathan, Ken, Lauren, R. Reed, Alex, Qui-Gon J, Mandy, Christopher Gassler, Gary. Again, Gary, thank you for signing up for Patreon. John Maloney, David Lozano, Leland Henry, Matthew Yarborough, Hard Countered. Is it Janora or Henora? Janora. There we go. Ashit. I think I had Leland in here twice, and then Richard Williams as well. So again, thank you everyone for coming out. Patreon members, thank you so much for your support, new and old alike, and those that have decided to contribute a few more credits extra. We certainly do appreciate
your faith and your investment in the show.
And I have new credits with everybody that we just talked about.
Yay. Yay, Albert. Good job.
Thank you. All right.
And there was much rejoicing.
We'll roll those, and we'll see you guys on Tuesday of next week.
You're still listening? Wow, that's amazing. Well, I'm here to give you the disclaimer. Normally we do a big, long, drawn-out disclaimer thing saying what's what and who's what and all that other stuff, but I think you guys kind of know that Lucasfilm and Disney have no affiliation with us at all, and we have none with them. We talk about Star Wars, which is their property and all that other good, fun stuff, but I think you can tell which is our stuff and which is their stuff. If you can't, well, then send a lawyer to send an email to me, and I'll be glad to chat with them. Other than that, you know what's what, so that's your disclaimer.